Welcome to Nerd on Nerd with me, Ellie Kempster.
And me, Liam Underwood. And this is a very special episode, isn't it, Ellie?
It is, because we're joined by Lee and Jason.
I'd have done it Jason and Lee. I'd have done it alphabetically.
Yeah,
but
also that's
you
the age thing as well.
Yeah, you do you, Ellie. You ruin
slightly have to be polite about it. Come on now.
All right. It's the he's a very old age thing. There we go.
We're a minute in and I'm already being bullied.
Yeah. Ellie, what are we talking about in this show?
Jason and Lee, as listeners know, when we get guests on, they tell us what we're all going to do for Culture Swap. And Jason and Lee picked X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
Because apparently they like putting us through torture.
Well, we'll find out why later. But before we get to that, it's time for everyone's favourite part of the show, catching up with Ellie, Liam, Jason, and Lee. Nailed it. Thank you. So let's have our guests catch us up first, because they've both been on before individually, and now they're here together, Lee. So
we're here together, Lee. That's very good.
I was wondering when that dig was going to come. Was it going to be early? Was it going to be late? Was it going to when are we going to bring up that Lee bitched enough that he didn't get his own part and then keep it up even when they're finally both together?
Yeah.
And it turns out right at the start, at the offset. Just fuck you.
The reason why we
bitch.
accepted to do X-Men Origins Wolverine is the thing that you suggested. We were like, oh, wait, we have to pander to him a little bit, keep him secure. So how are you feeling about all this, Lee? How about let's let Lee start. That way he'll be able to get off his chest how he's been feeling for the last year.
I'm so emotional.
Let's go, sloppy seconds.
And I went to. I'm actually just back from my anniversary holiday, my first anniversary holiday from getting married. And
Congrats, man! That's awesome.
Yeah, it was to Menorca,
Nice.
island of Menorca.
Oh, nice.
There's nothing like other than a lovely paradise with family and all. There's not really much to talk about except that I had a small. Deep crisis of self-loathing during the holiday.
Oh, that doesn't sound ideal.
That doesn't sound great.
The good thing is that when you have those moments where you kind of just break down and you wonder, am I the worst? That once they're over, you're convinced it's not so bad. So we're,
I guess.
Yeah, so that's.
I want to know more about this, man. Come on, what happened?
It was weird. Like I just woke up one day, and I guess like the good thing about holidays is that, or the way I see them is that they break all your routines, and therefore they let you kind of look at your life when you get back and go like, what the fuck am I doing with my time? And,
Well, we're getting deep.
but like 2 or 3 days before I came back, I was just like, I think I turned to my wife Maria. I was just like, I think I'm just in a bad place right now. I just don't really like where I am and who I am at the moment and shit like that. Just shit. Everybody has an identity crisis once in their life at least, and I had one a couple of days ago. But it was good because that's what holidays are for, is that you're away from society and you have enough time to recuperate from intense identity crisis.
Yeah, that's what holidays are for.
Especially Christmas.
Yeah. So is it a career thing, or is it something else that's going on? You can talk to us. This is a safe place.
It's only going out on the internet.
Yeah. I'm using this as a emotional, cred. Like, whoa, he's so complex. He actually hates himself. he could be a Batman someday.
That's what the world needs, is a red-headed Batman.
Yeah. Well, maybe a Robin then.
Well, I've seen this thing going around, which is like, Batman gets his name because he's afraid of bats. So what would your superhero name be using that logic?
Boxman.
Wouldn't it be Me-Man?
That's good. No, I'm claustrophobic, so Boxman.
That makes sense.
Like I fell into a cave and then further into like a cardboard box sealed over, and then I couldn't get out for days, and maybe who I am.
And then you fight crime by putting criminals in boxes.
No, I just dress up like a box through.
Oh, like Metal Gear Solid.
Shit at people. Yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's copyright infringement. Somebody's already done this. Yeah, I throw box-related things, and I have an obsession with putting people in jail because it's like a box of its on its own. You know, I use jail as the ultimate deterrent.
Perfect. And you just
Weirdly, sort of more appropriate than Batman because yours fits better. I'm putting them in jail. Why is Batman putting him in jail? He's a bat.
No idea. You should hang him upside down, wouldn't he?
But he uses
Exactly.
fear, like he has yeah. So, but then so am I.
These comic books we love so much, so flawed.
And the best one of all, later today.
Oh yes,
It's perfect.
Yeah, okay, back to all I was trying to get at was that I had nothing really to catch up on other than deep-rooted self-loathing. And I workshopped it over the remainder of my holiday, and I came back refreshed and happy, and all that really took was me talking about it to do it. So that's my moral of the story is talk about your shitty perception of yourself a little bit, preferably not on the internet, but if you're confident enough about it, then the internet, and you'll all feel better.
See, I thought you were going to try and guilt trip us and be like, yeah, this all started when I was invited onto your show second.
See, that's how you make things funny. That's smart. Yeah, other than that, fuck, oh, yous have been getting healthy lately, right? Yous are still doing that, right?
it's just Liam.
Just Liam.
Well, no, I've sort of roped you into some of it.
What's
Oh
this?
well, yeah. Well, I don't know if it counts.
I'm trying to like look after myself and go to the gym and then do active things on the weekend.
Me too. Good man.
Yeah, it's surprisingly fun.
It's
but
great for the head.
yeah,
I can sense Ellie's aversion to this entire conversation.
Yeah, so you say that. It's not so good for the head when you invite like Ellie and, I don't know, your girlfriend Cat, and then you decide to take them for a nice little bike ride, and then after like 10 minutes, you have about an hour and a half of them just moaning about how awful it is. That's not so good.
I lasted a lot longer than 10 minutes before I started moaning.
We did the first bit, and you went, I fucking hate you for making me do this.
Oh, that was there was a bit where Liam was cycling ahead real fast.
Yeah.
Because he's fitter than me. And I was like, I'm going to compete with him and do the same thing. And immediately went up a steep hill very quickly and nearly passed out at the top.
You're just angry because, I don't know, man. This is weird. Why would you get angry at him for your competition?
Right?
Oh, no, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an unspoken thing. It's just competition just works like that. It's like peer pressure, you know. You don't really see it, but it happens even when you don't realize it, and then it just comes out at terrible times. So that's when Ellie went on a shouting tirade at Liam for cycling faster.
Ellie, if you're looking into getting outdoors a little bit more and clearing your head, if that's what you want to do, I've been going on long-ass walks now and putting on like audiobooks and stuff like that, and just
the Nerd on Nerd podcast.
That one too. I have to get to that. I've actually shunned listening to podcasts in the last month, and the reason for that is because I'm just tired of having people talk to me. So I've been listening to like a lot of Star Wars audiobooks. Which is great.
Okay.
So
why is that not somebody talking to you?
I don't. How could I put it?
It's someone professional.
No, it's more a question of being taken someplace else and not necessarily like you can zone out at one point
is true.
and you can come
Absolutely.
back in and I can piece together where they are because Star Wars isn't that complex to understand. Whereas if I'm listening to Nerd on Nerd and they start bickering, and then if I start listening to I don't know, like the other people I listen to, you want to pick up a little bit later in the conversation and you're like, oh shit, now I got to go back and listen to this whole part and then I'll zone out again and I'll have to re-listen to it. So the audiobook I don't give a shit about. I'll eventually sit down with the book itself and kind of go through it. So it's not as bad. Or that or music. I've been listening to a lot of music lately. I hadn't listened to music in like years. Just put on like old soundtrack from when I was a kid, listening to old like punk rock or hip hop and all that stuff. So
nice.
And it's great. You put that stuff on and you just walk. You know, I have this. I have an app that's been keeping like my distance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been super cool to just go out. I go out 5:30 in the morning and I get back just in time to make my girlfriend her coffee.
That's too early.
It's too, yeah,
But I can't sleep.
get up
I
at, like,
come back
6
home
and
from
that's still too
fighting
early.
crime, and you know, it's just a weird thing.
Of course, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I think Ellie and Kat would prefer walking, but
Yeah.
I just find it a bit too slow.
This is the real issue we've got, is that when me and Liam are like, let's go outside, we
Right.
have very different goals. In that I want to go out to a forest and like just go and experience nature and be like, oh, look at this beautiful sight, and Liam's like, it's all just trees.
It's the air, man. It's the air.
Which you
I
can
like
get when you
trees.
cycle.
Huh?
I love going for I've been walking like 3 miles a day from on my way home from work, just because I enjoy walking and just sort of having time
That
to
is
yourself.
exercise. Then you are doing
You're
exercise.
doing
I'll count
exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also eating an unhealthy amount of pizza, and that sort of cancels that all out.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
just
No,
say
I've,
diet,
I've,
we
I've
just
adjusted
said
there too. But we
active.
were talking
Yeah.
about Liam. You've been taking care of yourself. Sorry, man. We kind of just
Yeah.
jumped in.
But that's fine. That's fine. To be honest, I'm still desperate to find out more about Menorca and what that's like.
Oh, very cool. Let's go back to Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever been there. So sell me on it.
Well, the place where we were, I don't know, I can't remember the name of the area, but the hotel was called Hotel Chiroy, and
Okay.
it was like this great little cove where the sea comes in, and this actual cave just outside the restaurant, and it had this beachfront that was like about 10 steps away from like a pool. And the actual town and culture in Menorca is super cool. They are huge gin drinkers. They're way into the fish market. There's a lot of cool things. We did a tour of the main town, one of the main towns called Mao, which turns out was like British occupied for a while. And like all the tour was just like, and this is where we used to have things until the British came in and fucked it up. And it was like, yeah, we've all been there. We've all been in occupied states. Don't you worry. It was just super pretty, super fun. There's not like, it was one of those holidays that was specifically to do fuck all and just have nice
Yeah.
weather and to relax and realize you have deep seated horror within you. And it ticked all the boxes.
Did you do any swimming?
Oh yeah, loads. The pool itself and therefore the sea also were fucking freezing. So like the first day was agony, and then I slowly trained myself just to learn to dive, just because it would just ease the horror of it every day. But once you're in there, after about 40 minutes, it got warm. once the hypothermia set in, all was good.
Nice.
It's like I got my blue lips on. Everything's fine now.
Yeah, sun's so red now.
You just take off your pants
hopefully-
and you stare down at your purple dick after that too. You just rubbing it sideways to keep it warm.
Like trying to make a fire happen.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully you found kind of talking about that with us has been quite nice and sort of lifted that off your shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now I still have unresolved abandonment issues from this show, but
Oh well,
but then
we can't fix those.
And then I also got unresolved guilt issues from losing the audio the other time I was here. So this show's just been a psychological nightmare for me so far.
Yeah, me too. Jason, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Oh, lots happened. I haven't gone through as much self-loathing as Lee does. He takes
that's
care of that
probably good.
on our end. But yeah, I've well, right now, tomorrow on Wednesday are the last meetings that I have for the entire semester, and then I'll be off for my summer vacation, which is going to be really, really cool.
Nice.
On Thursday, I'm leaving for the race in Montreal. I'm going to the Formula One race again, so that's going to be really interesting. Yeah, so it was a bit sketchy. The end of the semester was really fun, but because there's been a decline in the enrollment in college, I might not have a job after Christmas, which is the worst time to not have a job.
Yep.
However, they're making me work overtime. They gave me a choice during the fall semester. They said, okay, you can either take 5 classes or take 6 classes. And if you do have a little bit of work after Christmas, we'll just credit that class there, and you could be considered full-time if you ever have 3 classes after Christmas. And I was like, all right, so I'm going to be I'm going to be working overtime during the fall, so I'm not necessarily eager for that. But, it's just a small price to pay for maybe, putting that on my side. Hopefully, fingers crossed that I get a little bit of work after that. But yeah, so other than that, I mean, I've been having lots of fun with the kids. Lee and I haven't been recording steadily, and the reason for that is because I get lazy. And
We
that's
get
it.
lazy. You can't take all
yeah.
the blame.
Well, I think most of it, and seeing as that you were going to Spain to mope, I was in Quebec City moping as well, figuring out why the hell I was getting tired of talking about movies. And Lee sent me this wonderful long ass message. We had a beautiful conversation this week. It was very touching, and I showed it to my girlfriend, who almost shed a tear as a result, because I think that Lee speaks her language. Because when he sends me these long ass things, I roll my fucking eyes because I'm like, can't you be? We're complete opposites. I try to keep it simple. And then Lee sends me this goddamn novel I have to read.
He represses, and therefore he cries when he laughs.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So I'm still processing the information. So these tears are for next week when I fully understood what Lee sent me. And so, so we're in the process of redefining the show, and I put my finger on it, so I'll tell Lee about it right now, and you guys can chime in. I'm kind of sick of the discussion, I'm getting aggravated at people talking about movies online. And it's becoming a very, very, it's becoming a nuisance where I'm like, my voice is just kind of going off into the void. And it's not because I think that mine is more important than the others. It's just that people don't stop to listen anymore. They just wait for their turn to talk. And I'm so fucking angry at that now. And that's kind of where I put my finger on it. Because I love doing the show and I love like getting into it and all that. And it's just that when I noticed that everything online was just so massively irritating for my head, for self-esteem, everything, where you're like, what the fuck are people complaining about? We're so lucky.
When you get to have a conversation about anything on the internet, including films, it ends up often having to be, you have to go into every conversation with your guard super high up, because so the first thing that's going to come in is a dig or a correction or a slight, and nothing positive. I mean, we do get a lot of, for the show, we've got a lot of like positive people being really like, oh, I appreciate what you've said and stuff like that, but because the negative, it's just that effect that negative digs have on you. Like the moment that you get one, you're crippled if you're not prepared for it. So now, especially Jason is walking around with like a fucking turtle shell on the internet, because he's like, everyone looks suspicious, ready to dive in to dig at what you actually like about shit, and it's just so exhausting.
But is that just exactly sort of partly like the circles that you kind of end up finding yourself in on sort of social media and stuff?
That's pretty much what it is now, and that's where I'm starting to clean up a little bit. I'm like, oh well, mute this.
I think we do good.
Yeah.
I think we do good cleansing the out of the circles pretty relatively. I mean, pretty frequently. But for some reason, we just can't seem to get to a point where, like, we look at the feed out of it, on Twitter, and we're not like, oh, that's a bit of a shit tweet. Oh, that's a bit shit. And this conversation just looks like it's going around in circles and is going to hurt everyone involved.
Yeah, because to be honest, the Nerd on Nerd Twitter account, I've kind of taken a bit of a step back, and I just tweet very, very rarely when we have like stuff to tweet about.
A total no control over that.
Yeah, but like my personal Twitter account, I have a rule where I try not to be negative about like media, because there's enough of it. If someone asks me like direct questions like, what did you think of this? I don't necessarily want to lie, but I don't want to necessarily be that forthcoming with any sort of grievances.
Like, what did you think about this film? And you don't immediately start the conversation with, I thought it was shit, and I think anybody who likes it is a terrible human being. Just tone down the aggression a little bit. It's
and I always try and look for a positive somewhere, which with some stuff like Feast, it's quite hard. But most films and stuff, there's generally something you can talk nicely about.
I'm so excited that you've said that before our X-Men Origins talk, because that really sets the stage to our expectations of what you're bringing today.
Oh yeah, what I'm expecting to bring is for both Jason and Lee to kind of come with these wonderful theories and this like nicely researched, really, really airtight argument, and then me to just go, that's why I don't like it.
That reminds me of our conversation on what was it, Godzilla, when you were like, you said everything to make me like it even less. I was like, it's such a perfect line. I like that. But so that's it. It was just exhausting. Lee said the perfect word. It's becoming exhausting, and I think that's what I'm having no fun interacting with people online. And I've just noticed that, like, social media itself is such a waste of fucking time for me, where I'm like, you know what? Why am I not doing other things? There's a whole, like Ellie pointed out, there's trees. I could go outside and look at the trees and have much more fun. They give me something in exchange for what I'm giving them, whereas the other people are just attacking me with anything. It'd be the equivalent of walking in the forest and the trees were like alive, like in the Wizard of Oz, and they just kept slapping you in the face and throwing apples at you. That's how I feel social media is now. It's a fucking forest and Wizard of Oz. And so, I'm looking forward to getting going with Lee again. I think we just have to map out what movies we want to talk about, and I'm going to just kind of whittle it down to our conversations, have the people we like to talk to on the show whenever we feel it's necessary and all that stuff. And so, I'm the walks that I've been doing, the exercise. I've lost 20 pounds.
Nice.
It's been really great, man, to just kind of start shedding weight. My girlfriend finds me more attractive now, which is fun. And
how does that come up in conversation?
It's like,
how does it come up in a conversation? She basically, I was having a shower. I stepped out of the shower, and she's like, it's showing now. And I didn't know what she meant right away. I thought she was talking about my dick, and I was like, it's always showing. I have no idea. No, but she says the weight loss is showing, and I was like, okay. And she says, you can see it too now, can't you? And I was like, what are you referring to again? Yeah. I was like, I can always see it. She said, sometimes with the belly there, it's a little bit less. But... Yeah. So the thing is that that's been kind of fun to get out, and it's slowly been creeping up into my psychological state to just go out, do my thing in the morning, and just kind of get back and be completely oxygenated. And it puts me in such a great mood in the morning. I talk with my kids. I'm much more open-minded. I've been, a little bit more... loving, I'll say. My kids have noticed a difference. They're like, Dad, you're kind of, you don't get angry as much. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Thank you. It's like, how angry was I getting before? But yeah, so all that's been, I'm in a great mood, and that's it. Whenever I go online, that's when I realize, oh, this is the fucking depressing place where it's just a cesspool of trashy individuals that have no real insight on anything, just yelling at each other. That's so fucking boring. So yeah, other than that, I'm looking forward to buying my Funko Deadpool Bob Ross.
Nice. Yeah. I like that gets mentioned in there.
So, about you guys, I want to know. Ellie, what's up with
Ellie,
you?
do you want to go first? Because I'm going to bring the mood way down with mine.
Oh God, fine, okay.
We started at self-loathing, and then...
am I going to be the only one that's...
And then Liam's like, I'm going to bring the mood down.
I haven't done much. The only thing I've done recently is... Shut up, Liam. We're being positive, remember? We just had 2 conversations about positivity.
Yeah, come on in.
Me and Liam, on Saturday...
Well done.
Went to see the Book of Mormon.
We did.
Oh, yay. I've seen
Went
that.
up to that London.
It's the first time I've seen it, so... When Liam offered me tickets, I was like, hell yeah, that sounds good. We went with me, Liam, Cat, and my dad.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, spot the odd one out.
Cat?
Lame.
Yeah. No, it was cool because I've tweeted to your dad before and I've spoken to him on the phone, but I've never actually met him, and he was basically exactly like I was expecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 That's awesome.
He's like a 50-something man that probably stopped growing up at like 20.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So an
That's pretty accurate,
aspirational goal. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'll give him a follow on Twitter as well then. Hi, I'm from Quebec. Do you like me?
He loves music. So just tweet to him about music and you'll be golden.
Yep.
All right, cool.
You'd be sorted.
Cannibal
Sweet.
Corpse, here I come.
But yeah, it was. It's such a good musical.
Yeah.
It's so good. It really is.
It's just amazing.
I mean, it's the
Yeah.
second time that me and Kat have seen it now. So I'll let Ellie, because I've discussed it on the podcast before, so I'll let Ellie give her thoughts.
I mean, it's just hilarious.
Brilliant.
I don't know how much more in depth I can go than that. It's the whole thing is hilariously funny. I've been listening to the soundtrack for
What's
the
your
last
favourite song?
couple of days. It was Turn It Off.
Yep.
And it has now swapped to I can't remember the name of it. The one he sings about making things. Oh, I'm making it up again.
Yeah, yeah.
Such a good song.
That's good.
Just love it.
What's the what's the song that ends the first act? The guy Cunningham sings it, and he has to man up or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Man Up. Yeah.
I love that song, man. It's so good. But so there's so many in it. That's the thing is it could have just been funny. But the majority of the songs are genuinely listenable. We have them on usually when we get drunk in the apartment, just me and the wife. And
the cats.
And the cats. We'll put on musical playlists and belt and Book of Mormon gets right in there. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I didn't realise that they got, I think, the songwriter that worked on Frozen to help them with writing the songs.
I think
for the Book
one
of Mormon.
half of them, probably the talented half, because the songs in Frozen are fucking terrible.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen...
Yeah. It's on my list.
Liam likes High School Musical.
It's bad, man. Don't
It
watch
is
it.
bad.
It's a terrible
Like
movie.
it's worth seeing. I think once because it clearly had a big effect on a lot of people. And it was, I don't know, people were excited about the twists in it and stuff like that, or the overall intended messages. But the film itself, like those intended messages, are absolutely squandered each and every step of the way by the story writing, and it just forces you to go, you're like, oh, I see what they were trying to do. Everything comes with an asterisk. Like, Frozen was technically, with best intentions, a really good film. It just didn't, it was just often very cheap and had some of the worst character development and songs ever put to a Disney film, let alone film. It's weird. That should be the other way around. Anyway. Book of Mormon.
Go on then, go on. Oh yeah, no, I was going to say go on, Liam. That's my thoughts summed up.
Just
now, I mean, let's go on, Liam. Get depressing.
No, because obviously I did the Book of Mormon as well, which was good. I what I like about it is how good the stage production is with the set design and how that sort of moves as the show goes on. The thing is, we went to see Hamilton a week ago, and I've had the songs from that stuck in my head. And I was like, oh, okay, Book of Mormon will probably knock that out. It hasn't.
It's impossible. No, it doesn't do that. The thing about Hamilton's songs is they're actually kind of musical perfection. And it's all the worse for it because, kind of like the songs from Moana, because it's mostly the same songwriter, they get caught in your head for like years. I mean, I listened to Hamilton a year ago, I think, this month, a year ago, because it was our honeymoon. Yeah, that was the first time I listened to the album of it. I've never seen it still because it's too expensive and booked out. But I like my wife and I are super dying to go. But I know we both know all the songs, and we've both listened to the album like 3 or 4 times over. And then just some of the songs just creep into your normal music playlist.
Yeah,
that's how terrifying it gets, and pervasive, and it's kind of just like the worst, but. Because you want your life back.
Well, that's it. Like when I went to see it, I deliberately didn't listen to any of the songs before going because I wanted that like fresh experience.
That's smart. Yeah.
And the thing is, because the songs are so intricate, it was quite overwhelming. So there was like loads that I didn't really pick up on, and there's like a lot of like recurring motifs. I think it is.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much. It's so delicately written in and out. And the thing, like when I was listening to it, like on like Spotify or something, we were just driving, so I was really grateful not to have like the images of the actors and stuff, because I was like, that's going to be fucking distracting. They're just singing the story. I need to absorb this to understand what the fuck's going on.
Exactly.
So that was I would have preferred that method. I would have suggested it, but it's good to know that
they released more tickets for it today, so I bought more tickets so I could go and see it on my birthday. It's like I gave myself a birthday present because I'm so addicted.
What are the prices of the tickets?
Moving on.
Like, that's because that's
so that's why he's depressed.
The horrible hook.
It's fine. It was a birthday present, so I can kind of get away with it. It's all good. It just means I have to wait till December before I can see it again, which just feels like a long wait.
Yeah, no shit.
It's sad.
Poor you, Liam, having to wait for your second viewing of Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
You cry from your ivory tower.
Yeah. I bought tickets so me and Kat can go, and then I got tickets for my mum and her other half to come, and I'm really not sure if they're gonna like it because they've seen like Les Mis and they liked that, but
That'll be
Like
fine.
it's just such a hard sell. Like, okay, come with us to a musical about one of the founding fathers of America, which is told
it's
through
all
rap
in
and
rap,
hip hop. Yeah.
It's weird. I think the best thing you could do is not overhype it. You know, try to rein in the expectations a little bit, because you're just like, it's probably the best musical I've ever seen on stage, and then people will go like, oh, then my expectation. I've seen Les Mis, and Les Mis is really good, so therefore, Hamilton must be the greatest experience of my life, and then they just get let down horribly, and then they blame you for spending over £200 on fucking tickets for something they didn't like.
Yeah, you could you could tell them that it's a musical about the life and times of Lewis Hamilton, the F1 driver, and that way their expectations would just plummet. Like, I'm going to see this? Oh man, what the fuck? He's a prima donna. Why?
Yeah, like through gritted teeth. Thank you, Liam.
And now to just bring the mood down. So it's been a stressful week. So Kat found a lump in one of her boobs like a week ago.
Oh shit! Okay.
So she went to a doctor, and they were like, "Oh, because it hurt." They're like, "It's probably nothing," and gave her like antibiotics. And then we had to wait until today for a hospital appointment just to get like a second opinion. And they were like, first, we don't really understand why you've been prescribed these antibiotics. But then secondly, it turned out it's just like a collection of fatty tissue, and it's nothing to worry about. It's not like the big bad thing that it could be. Right. But I just want to put the message out there. Check yourself and go to a doctor if there's anything unnatural there.
Yeah.
I figured Nerd on Nerd is the right place to put that message out.
If you're in that, the week of waiting must be fucking terrible.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was one of those things where we're like, well, we're 70% sure that it's probably okay, but it's that other percentage where we're just like,
30 sucks, man.
Yeah. So luckily, it was probably like one of the better outcomes it could have been. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just check yourself.
Yeah. Holy shit, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's not fun at all.
No.
That did bring the mood down. Yeah. I agree.
Now,
it
did. But it was your week, so I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And like we had Book of Mormon as a nice distraction.
During it? Oh man.
Yeah, but yeah, Kat's been quite good with it all. She sort of handled it quite well. Didn't let it get to her too much, and she also had to put over my shit all week. So yeah, she's
yeah, because I imagine you didn't stop.
Well, I stopped like just the random like groping and squeezing because that was hurting her. So I was mindful. But now that she's got the all clear, I'm like, well, that's back on the cards.
Rooms, back into the podcast again.
So it's all good, right?
It's beautiful. Yeah,
there we go.
So that was catching up with. Now it's time for Ellie's favourite part of the show.
People have been to the cinema or done other stuff. Here's the spoiler-free reviews of the things that everyone's done.
It's good you mentioned spoiler-free. That could have really went wrong there.
Apparently, we all have a 3-thing limit, just FYI.
Oh, yeah.
No, everyone else is fine, Liam. It's just you.
Okay.
You have a 3-thing limit.
I have a 3-thing limit.
To be fair, we could probably be as bad as Liam if we had seen 3 things.
This is true.
Did you see our fucking... We were doing that Godzilla. That was 2 films on our show. And that went for 2 hours.
but we did spoilers. It's a lot harder when it's spoiler-free.
That's true.
So
watch us do it anyway.
Who wants to kick it off?
I'll start.
Cool.
I've not done anything.
Thanks, Ellie.
Moving on.
Wow. Fucking what a useful contribution.
I was so excited. I just thought you were leaping in there. Like, my God, Ellie's really taking the charge this time.
Yeah.
She's really got something that she's eager to push on to people, and it's nothing. Damn it.
No. I can start with Solo, a Star Wars story, if anyone else has seen that and wants to do a spoiler-free discussion.
Sure, man. I'll get in with you.
I know most of the spoilers anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Go ahead.
Sweet. And I know Ellie's seen it because she discussed it on the last episode, which isn't available yet because she's slow editing it.
Because we recorded on Friday or Thursday.
Whatever. You had plenty of time. Yeah, it was Solo, a Star Wars story, which is the origin of Han Solo. We find out how he got his name.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was underwhelming.
It was what?
Is it a spoiler?
Underwhelming. Just the origin of the name.
It was always going to be underwhelming, that part of it. I mean...
No, but I mean, it plays into the overall Star Wars mythos, in my opinion, anyway. It's kind of fun, because it doesn't matter where your name comes from. it kind of goes with the beats that Rey has in The Force Awakens as well. So it's kind of interesting, the fact that there's no real association. So the fact that it was such a non-event, I was like, good. He's not tied to anything. This is great. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm
that's
pleased.
good.
I'm pleased that I've got you guys on to discuss it, because I feel like you're going to give a nice counterbalance to my views on it, which would generally...
So we've went from the if you can't say anything positive.
Yeah.
Meh.
I mean, okay, so I did like... Oh, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. How do you say the main guy's name?
Han Solo.
The actor.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Alden, right. Yeah.
That's it. I thought he was really good.
Yeah.
I liked... This is a weird thing to pick up on, I think, maybe. But I really liked the lighting throughout it. It
Yeah,
didn't
a lot of people are bitching
necessarily...
about that, but I'm glad that you're bringing it up.
Yeah,
Well, it was in the news saying that the most cinemas haven't got the projectors set up to show it properly, and that's why they're saying maybe watch Solo at home, where the screen will backlight what it's supposed to look like.
Okay.
But unless you went to see it in IMAX, you're probably not seeing the full picture properly, and all
I
the
saw it in
lighting and all
IMAX,
that.
so I was
those
fine.
that see it that way, they see a film that's supposed to be seen that way, and everybody else saw like supposedly a very dark,
Yep.
hard to make out movie, because projectors don't give off they give off like 60% of the light required for the tones used by Solo. So
yeah. See, I
that's
saw
where
it...
much of the bitching is coming from. It is a genuinely bad experience, spun poorly.
Yeah. I saw it just a normal cinema screen, but it
Yeah.
looked fine, and I liked
Yeah.
the kind of the use of lighting. Woody Harrelson was good. Donald Glover was obviously just perfect for that role, I thought.
Handsome.
Yeah.
For that role.
See, that's the difference between you and I right now. I thought that Donald Glover was doing an impression more than actually acting, and I
Oh, really?
kind of was a little bit underwhelmed by his performance. I was like, oh man, you've got the intonation down and everything like that, but you're not making the character your own. Whereas that's what I liked about Ehrenreich's performance, where he was like, I'm going to kind of have a little bit of the swagger, but I have to earn it because I'm 10 years behind The New Hope. And so it was kind of interesting to see that change throughout, the entire arc. But that's it, Lando. I was kind of like, okay, yeah, he's cool. I do enjoy Donald Glover, but at the same time, I felt he was kind of boring in the movie, to be honest.
I don't think he was in it a whole lot, and I'm pleased
No,
that
you're right.
he wasn't kind of too much. I wouldn't have minded a little bit more, but I felt like Emilia Clarke was kind of wasted.
Oh, I disagree.
Really?
Oh, yeah, she's like a Bond girl in this one, man. She's like a femme fatale. She's kind of
Yeah.
there, but not there, but she's actually informs the rest of what Han Solo's going for, as well as an arc. I thought it was brilliant, the way that you kind of live Han Solo's moments with him, but you can only, when you meet Kira again, you can only imagine what the hell's been going on behind that, just by the way she's walking, the way that she talks, a little bit more, self-assurance, but at the same time you realize that it's a facade. I thought it was so cool.
I get that, yeah. I that's why I wanted more of her, just because I liked her performance in it.
Yeah. Surprisingly, right? Usually she's kind of like, if anybody's watched Terminator Genesis, you're like,
Yeah. I didn't particularly like how they did the first meeting between Han Solo and Chewbacca. I was just a bit, I don't know, didn't quite work for me. But
okay.
the problem I found with it is I liked little bits here and there, but most of it I was just kind of not that into it. I was just like, I could take it or leave it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't really what I want from a Star Wars film. I want to be gripped and like just enthralled by it, and I didn't really get that. There was a cameo towards the end that obviously I can't say for spoilers, but I kind of dug that. I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm happy for other people to jump in with their thoughts, so it's not just a somewhat negative review.
Oh, well, I'll push back on it. I understand that. I'll understand that it is a valid criticism to see it as somewhat of a non-event in Star Wars lore. However, I don't think the movie itself is about what it's about. It's about how it affects the rest of Star Wars. And that's the way I'm choosing to view it. When I watch it, I was like, okay, this is interesting because we've never really seen this type of pace in Star Wars. We've never seen the underbelly. This is a movie where, there's no Jedi in any of this you know, and so people have been clamoring to have a little bit more of an open world experience when it comes to Star Wars, and they finally get Solo and they decide to shit on it, which I thought was pretty strange. Because they introduced so many interesting new characters for me specifically. Like Enfys Nest, I think, is a fantastic new character. Like I tweeted out that this is well, anyway, cat's out of the bag. She's she's the Boba Fett movie I'd like to see. You know, I think that there's a lot more to do with that type of character, especially in today's world. I mean, she looks like she would be a positive role model for my children in the end. You know what I mean? And that's not spoiling anything. You know, you can be bad and good at the same time, and I think Nest kind of encapsulates that quite well. I also appreciate the fact that Solo itself, as generic as the story might be, because like most people are pointing out the fact that it's a checklist of all the shit that we've heard about for Han Solo, and at the same time you're like, okay, yeah, but what's in between that? That's kind of like cooking ribs and just chewing on the bones rather than the meat for me. And so I liked how we get to meet Han, and the fact that Kira says to him, you're not the bad guy, you're the good guy, and how that affects how we view Ben Solo when he's in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And you're like, okay, this, like father, like son. So it actually kind of informs a lot more of the narrative that going forward. There's no mention of the Hutts in Han Solo as well. However, it's kind of understated, which is cool. The meeting with Chewbacca I thought was great because it riffs on when they find each other in Return of the Jedi again, which I thought was kind of a parallel thing where they it's kind of a reuniting in a way. I also love the fact that, and well, am I allowed one spoiler about Chewbacca?
You can say it, and then on the editing room floor, I'll have to make a call on whether it's a bad spoiler or not.
Well, I mean, a lot of people know that we're going to find Chewbacca. You know, a lot of what had been said is that he was in slavery, in chains, and all that. You know, so that is in the movie. So anybody who's read any expanded universe stuff are aware of that. Yeah. What I didn't know that I thought was cool is that now we have confirmation that Chewbacca might have actually eaten people, which is fascinating to me. And I was like, that's pretty cool to see that.
I hadn't actually put that together until you just said it, and now I'm like, oh, yeah. Jeez.
That's a very big progression from a couple of months ago when people were freaking out he could have eaten porgs, and
now you're like, oh shit, he actually eats
human-eating monster.
There's a couple of cuts that I really enjoyed in how the film is edited. You know, when Han's going through military academy and they say, he's like, I can be a great pilot and all that. Oh, well, great. We're going to have you flying in no time. And then the next shot is him literally flying through the air because of an explosion that he's part of. And I thought that was a really good kind of fun visual pun going with the word. But yeah, overall, my experience with Solo, I thought it was a really interesting step in the right direction. It's weirdly paced. You can kind of tell that there's some stuff missing. But I really like the fact that it was a small story. You know what I mean? I thought that was interesting. You know, the smaller, little incremental parts, how they affect the rest of the Star Wars universe, even like tying the prequels to it, tying the sequels to it. You know, just embodied in this Han Solo character. I thought it was great to kind of get that. You know, kind of one of those young Indiana Jones adventures with a smuggler instead of an archaeologist. It was great.
Well, see, one of the things is I kind of like that it feels to me they've deliberately left enough open for another movie to slot in between Solo and like Episode 4. I just don't think it's getting the box office that means we're going to get that movie necessarily.
That's what I mean. That leads me to my. I mean, I haven't seen Solo, so I don't have anything to think about that. But I mean, when I hear about like the idea that you like the idea, like Jason likes the idea that this smaller, self-contained story, and it's far more like. It's just like a side thing, right? And that's what a lot of people said was good about Rogue One as well. It's just like, whoa, isn't that interesting? It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be this big explosive saga. It's just a little one-off, little trip to the world of Star Wars. And you kind of think, okay, so the budget's really high, and film sets its expectations where people have to go out and actually watch these things. And if the story's really small, but the budget's super high... I mean, surely they could kind of meet in the middle and be really good on TV or something, you know? And then people don't get caught up about, oh, God, a Han Solo TV show. I can't watch that. You know, like, they'd be like, yeah, I would love to watch a Han Solo TV show. I'd invest hours and hours of time watching a Han Solo TV show. It was like HBO quality. Like, You know, like that's what I mean. Like, do you? Well, that's what I want to pose as a question to the two of you. You've seen the actual film. Do you think that if they had kind of worked it and paced it out a little longer, and made it into something like a 10-part series where they added obviously more elements to it, do you think it might have been better suited to be a pretty high budget TV show rather than a pretty mid-budget for a Star Wars film, fast edited movie? You know, did it have to be a movie basically?
I think it works as both. I mean, the budget right now, a lot of people are taking it out of context. The fact that they literally fired Lord and Miller halfway, like, well, actually, no, almost when they were, like, I think it was like a month away from completion or 2 months away from completion. I mean, there's a lot of money that's been thrown away on this project, you know? But if you take that out of the equation and you look at the budget itself, they didn't have a bad opening weekend considering the fact that well, I mean,
they were still mostly top of the international box office and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's competing. I mean, I think the big mistake was going back to May. Stick to December, for Christ's sake.
Definitely.
If you're doing well, you own it, you know. And if you decide we're going to move it back, then no one's going to put anything there. But they already had like slated Mary Poppins and all that stuff. But I mean, I understand what you mean with regards to the TV show, and it would have been great because you kind of get to meet these side characters, and that could have been really well developed. The only thing is that Solo is a big player. He doesn't go on TV, to me anyway. I mean,
I would agree. Minds. I would agree if he was a part of like the main cast. You know, like Solo has always been an in and out character where he sort of jumps in, saves people, kind of plays a side role more than a lead role
to you
in the story. And I think
but I mean,
in each of the stories, he's not the main character. But when he is the main character, I think of like the old novels that he kind of led, and I think like those are so tailored to his type of character because he is in a sense a sort of asshole version of Indiana Jones, and those kind of serialized adventures suit the character in my head more than say a one set story that also has to kind of tie into a bunch of things in a short span of time and have it all kind of contained in one area of time rather than over a long couple of seasons where we kind of tease out these characters and these adventures and just make it a little more full, you know? They make his life seem a little... Because he's obviously, from the moment we meet him as Harrison Ford, he seems like such a lived-in character that it just seems to me like to put that to film rather than TV just feels like you're just defaulting rather than thinking it through. And that's all I'm saying. I that's why I just wanted to ask, do you think it would have been better suited? Not necessarily you don't think it turned... Like, the Solo film could be really good. It doesn't really matter. I'm just saying, do you think it would have been better to rethink the entire thing from the start and just pace it out as a TV show where we get to have sort of weekly adventures with Han Solo rather than Han Solo... He has to carry a whole story about his tragic upbringing in one day, and then the next day he's got a love affair, and then the next day, you know, like, and then cram that into 2 hours or an hour and a half or however long this is.
Well, I think like any story that has a lot of meat to it, and how much material is out there around Han Solo that they could have sort of drawn from, would be more beneficial for like a longer form sort of thing, like a TV show where you can get really into the character. I mean, with a film, you're always going to have like 2.5 hours to kind of tell your story and get out, whereas a TV show, you know, you can have a much more in-depth character study over like 10 hours. But I kind of see what Jason's saying as well, where it just seems to make more sense to have like a movie about Han Solo than a TV show.
Sure. But yeah, I was just asking your opinions anyway. It's
yeah.
Just,
I think spin-offs, spin-offs would
I'm
be
going to
good.
go... Oh, sorry.
You know, spin-offs would be good in my opinion. I mean, Solo, like I said, maybe not to you, but to a lot of people that grew up with the original trilogy, Han Solo is part of the big three, right?
Yeah.
And so he's equal. And I agree with you. He's not my guy either. You know what I mean? I'm just surprised by what they were able to put together. However, I would take like a series where, you know, the Hutts are involved, and then you'll see other kind of bounty hunters and smugglers and all that stuff, where you maybe have like a special appearance by Solo somewhere in one of those episodes, or Lando in one of those episodes, you know. But I wouldn't take a Lando spin-off, for example. I wouldn't have a movie about him where people are clamoring like, we have to have Donald Glover's Lando movie, and I'm like, no, we don't, not at all. It's going to be one of the really boring movies, unless it's a gambling movie than where he wins Bespin and that's how
It's
he
like
gets
Molly's
control of it.
game, but with Lando.
There you go. But that's it. So I don't know. I think that the world in which Solo is situated definitely is beneficial for TV. That would be
Yeah.
something I'd love to watch. But
That's
the
what I'm
character
really getting at, I
himself,
suppose.
the character himself, I think, belongs on the big screen. But the world he lives in, definitely small screen.
Fair enough. That's a
Yeah,
good way. But Ellie was trying to say something.
All I was going to say was I reckon it's pretty much what Jason just said with the whole like Han himself doesn't particularly suit the TV.
Sure.
I sort of don't think that Han Solo fits on the TV or the big screen because I think Star Wars in the original trilogy sort of managed to accidentally discover that they can make amazing characters by not telling us anything about them. Like Boba Fett is one
that's
of
true.
everyone's favourite Star Wars people, and he is in like 3 scenes. All right, not Jason, not Liam. You're in the minority, people. But it's the same with Han. You get these stories from Han Solo that Han Solo's kind of lying about, or maybe exaggerating his own thing, and I didn't need to see them on screen because they're never going to be what I thought they would be. So when you see them, you're sort of like, oh well, that's not what I imagined it being like, and that to me takes away some of that feeling of being a kid and being like, oh, that's what
true.
that
That's
is.
totally true. Absolutely.
I kind of get that, but doesn't that parallel a little bit of the arc that goes on in The Last Jedi with Luke Skywalker? The fact that he has become this kind of legendary status, but at the same time, when you strip him down to what his bare essentials are, he's a guy. He's a human. And I think that that's what Han Solo, the movie itself, is that people have built him up as this legendary pilot and whatnot, and he believes his own bullshit even throughout the entire movie, even in the original trilogy. Even when he corrects Chewbacca on some specific thing, he's like, no. If we do this with it, then everything's fine. And so he's himself building up his own legend, and I think that if you're in a smuggling world and all that stuff, if you start building up that legendary status, it's like poker games. People get these larger-than-life names, and when you watch them play, they're like really calm individuals and whatnot. You're like, okay, let's see what's going on. So that's what the funny thing is that when you compare him and contrast to Lando in the Solo film, Lando basically says, every story you've heard about me is true. And then when you pick apart who Lando actually is, you kind of realize that he's putting himself up on a pedestal, but he hasn't earned it. Where Solo, by the end of the movie, you're like, okay, I can understand why he is the way he is in the original trilogy. He's been through some shit that we've seen, So I don't know. I'm gonna have fun defending Solo. Is it perfect? No. I can understand why people don't like this movie with regards to the pacing and how the structure is, some decisions that they made and whatnot. However, if I look at it in the context of the whole Star Wars universe, it's kind of fun to have that small piece of the puzzle where you're like, okay, I'm glad I have that one there. Moving on.
I also like, and I don't know if this is getting into spoiler territory, so I'll let Ellie decide when she edits, but I like
That's what Liam says when it is going to be a spoiler.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that they've deliberately attempted to address the whole, hand shooting first, sort of all that bullshit. They
That's
very
great.
deliberately.
Yeah, I almost said it earlier too.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Is that a spoiler?
Yeah, probably.
Fuck off.
I don't think it is.
No, I don't.
I don't think it is.
Exactly, and that's democracy. We've outvoted you.
Oh, okay, fine.
I liked that. The thing is, I read somewhere, like an article or something, that I kind of agree with, that these spin-offs, instead of expanding the Star Wars universe by focusing on established characters and events, it's making this huge universe just seem smaller. And I would kind of like to have a Star Wars spin-off where it's a completely different set of characters, and maybe like these huge events have happened in the background, and it's, these characters just dealing with the fallout of that, but they're not directly related or tied into characters that we're familiar with.
I guess that was what they were trying to do with Rogue One, where it's essentially entirely different characters, but then it all still plays into the exact same conflict and leads you right up to where you remember the story, so it kind of defeats itself a little bit there in what it could have done, I guess. But I think they're just building up to it. I mean, they've announced the fucking Boba Fett film.
No, it's not been announced by Lucasfilm at all. It's just a rumor. Mangold's probably working on a script. That's it.
All right, well then, who the fuck cares? So they've announced nothing of note. But the interesting thing, at least, is that they've got the guys who do Game of Thrones, or at least Benioff doing, who actually comes up today as one of the many writers, one of the many people to blame on X-Men Origins,
Or celebrate.
or so. Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. I'm absolutely going to say how great this person changed, how this man changed my life, and the other guy skipped something. But yeah, I mean, they're building that show. I doubt it's got anything to do with any major world as it stands today in the Star Wars lore, other than what you might find in like books and whatever that I don't have any say in. So I think that's probably the baby steps. I'd imagine if those characters from that get big enough, then they'll say that's a 200 million investment or something like that, you know. But I just don't. I can't imagine Disney go like, oh, there's no reason to like it happens unless it's something like Knights of the Old Republic kind of shit, where it's like, you know, so long before the Star Wars current canon is happening. We've got a bunch of other people, and then they go back before the prequels, and then they have to address
the Star Wars canon right now, only old.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a defeatist attempt to do anything because nobody really cares, or should. But you know, they'll probably invest like that. I think that you could see like Star Wars Bespin or something like that, you know, and it's more like collected stories of characters who are all centralized in one event on a planet or something like that. I could see them announcing that with totally different characters, but. Will they anytime soon? Probably not. Not with Solo blowing their latest. That's an investment in a big name, and it's kind of backfiring, and now they're going to be freaking out.
Yeah, but at the same time, not many people and I'll understand. Like, if I take my mom and dad, okay, Han Solo to them is Harrison Ford. They are probably not going to go out of their way to see a movie dedicated to Han Solo. My parents are not going to see the new Star Wars movies. You know, they're relying on people like me to take my kids. That's what's selling the tickets. Now, there's so many factors that go into why it well, I'll say underperformed, but I don't know. I just wanted to address what Liam was saying a little bit earlier about making the world smaller, and I kind of disagree with that. You know, before Rogue One, no one had ever heard about, like, kyber crystals, you know, this was all relegated to the books and all that stuff, you know. No one had, you know, seen anybody construct a lightsaber. No one knew who Saw Gerrera was. You know, I understand how they took, you know, the opening crawl of A New Hope and then kind of just decided to make a movie about it, and I can understand how people would interpret that as small. But it also brought us to a series of new planets. Yes, they're kind of related to the conflict that's going on, but it is sign of another story, you know. And in Solo, I mean, that's another thing where we went to other planets that we'd only seen in Expanded Universe. We have a brand new character in Enfys Nest, who, you know, is somewhat tied to a little bit of what we know, but not in a way that we've actually seen before. So, I mean, to me, that's introducing new material that they can build on. You know, or have people speculate about, and it's actually opening up. Maybe yes, in terms of the timelines, we're kind of staying close. You're playing it close to the chest and whatnot, but they're introducing new and exciting things in that can expand to other things. You know, and so I kind of like that. Even going to The Last Jedi and going to Ahch-To, we'd never seen that planet before. We'd never seen a Jedi temple before. We'd never, you know, these are all interesting things that I think that people are just kind of overlooking. Well, it's the same characters. Look around, motherfucker. Stop staring at just the goddamn image. Look around. It's like going into the forest and staring down at the trail you're walking on as opposed to exploring what the hell's around you. It doesn't make any sense.
Once again, that forest is the one from The Wizard of Oz, and our metaphors get linked, and it's a total nightmare.
It's weird,
I think, okay, I'm going to use, like, two really bad examples because they're not great. But I think what I wanted from, like, the Star Wars, like, story movies is kind of like these like anthology type films, like what the Cloverfield series is doing, and like what Halloween 3 tried to do, where you take like an established thing and you tell separate stories, but there is some like sort of link that isn't necessarily hugely obvious. Right. So I just feel like when you've got this huge galaxy with pretty much endless opportunities, I would have liked to have seen kind of filmmakers just bring these unique original ideas, and then like as long as the story is good, work that into a Star Wars environment.
All right.
But
now
mostly
I've never watched Halloween 3. Is Michael Myers in Halloween 3?
No, so Halloween 3 is Season of the Witch, where the initial idea for Halloween was they did 1 and 2, which were linked, and then they were going to have a new Halloween film that came out every Halloween that had the Halloween title but just told a completely different story. So the third one is about haunted masks that kill children with lasers and bugs, and it melts faces and stuff.
Okay, I won't be watching that. But
It's awesome.
Cloverfield, they tie it all together with aliens, do they not?
I mean,
I don't think they were supposed to be, though.
Jason, you're underestimating Cloverfield lore there, my friend. They tie it all together with a slushy company.
There you go.
yeah.
But anyway, but I understand what you mean. I kind of get that. I understand that if you take Solo out of the Solo picture, you take Lando out of it, and you have, maybe Chewbacca as the main character if you want, it kind of is a little bit of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It is a separate story. I would love to see new characters. That's definitely. But at the same time, you're talking about Halloween 3, and now we're 3 movies into the Cloverfield. We've only have 2 movies that are related to like the anthology movies. Maybe number 3 is exactly what you're looking for.
Well, unless it's Boba Fett, and then it probably won't be.
No, definitely not. I completely get that. But that's one movie that I'm like, I in my head the same way. I was like, I don't want a Solo film. Why? And then after that, I was like, okay. When I saw the trailer, I was like, what am I complaining? I'm going to go see this. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And then the same thing with Boba Fett. I was like, I don't like that character.
Yeah,
but I'm going to be there opening night anyway.
You cartwheeling your opinions back on that one.
Oh, all the time, man.
You've recorded in podcasts for the last 2 years, every now and then just saying, by the way, Boba Fett, what an overrated pitch.
Yeah, but I'm going to see the movie anyway. Maybe it'll be interesting, you know what I mean?
Greatest Star Wars anthology film yet.
It could be that too, and I'll be 100% okay with it.
Yeah.
Disintegrations.
Jason, what would you give Solo out of 5?
4.
Okay, that's a high rating. I would have gone for a 2, but it's just because there were like huge moments where I was just like, I don't care what's happening, and that's not what you want. Right, has anyone else seen or read anything that they want to discuss?
I've seen Deadpool 2.
Cool,
Fun,
yeah.
Oh wow, everyone's seen it. That's crazy.
Yep.
All I wanted to relay about it, because talking about comedies isn't funny, is that at the end my wife cried and felt like I had betrayed her, because I had led her into a good time, and then turns out it was a really sad and sentimental ending, and then felt like I tricked her to go see it.
Holy shit.
That was almost my issue with it, though, was that I just didn't feel like it struck a good tonal balance. I loved the comedy side. When it tried to get a bit too sentimental, I was just like, this isn't working for me.
Okay. Wow. I'm the guy that's a little bit more positive, and I actually love Deadpool 2 more than I like Deadpool 1.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Because the sentimental aspect of it really got to me, because I mean I understood what she was talking about, because the relation, listen, I don't have like superpowers or anything like that. However, the relationship that Wade has with Vanessa is a little bit of what the relationship I have with my girlfriend, and where she's trying to push me to become a better person, a better father to my kids and all that. And I kind of understand that dynamic. So it kind of hit me a little bit more on a personal level. I was like, this makes more sense than the stupid premise in the first movie, where it's essentially a Deadpool who is insecure about what he looks like, and he thinks that his girlfriend likes him because he's pretty. Which is, I was like, that's kind of a shitty message to be sending out to the world. Whereas this one is being a little bit more of a responsible individual, and caring for the people that are around you is kind of interesting. Because not only does he make amends with the kid, he makes amends with Colossus. He's a little bit more accepting of how Cable is towards it, because he understands that they have something in common ground and whatnot. So I thought that this one was actually much better developed, but I don't know. I preferred this one anyway. It was a fun experience.
Yeah, I definitely preferred it to the first, but I think it's just because I thought the comedy worked more consistently in this one. I didn't like the use of a certain X-Men character in this towards the end.
Liam, we're on camera, so can you give us some sort of hand sign to represent who you're talking
I know
about
exactly who
without
he's
spoiling it for the
talking
listeners?
about.
I don't.
Okay.
What hand sign can I give to reveal that character? Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, got you. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
There you go, Liam. That was very easy. See,
Yeah.
Jason's got it.
Yeah.
You didn't like the use of said character?
Yeah. I don't know. It didn't quite work for me.
Fair enough.
But
Said characters had a bad rap so far.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I disagree on that. I thought it was funny. Said character was quite good in my opinion. But what else?
Fair enough.
I can't
So-
disagree with that.
Deadpool 2 is one that we've all seen. So Ellie's been very quiet. What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
What about Deadpool?
Yeah. Deadpool 2.
Oh, is that what we're talking about? It's good. We've already covered it on the show, Liam, I think.
Yeah, but for anyone that maybe we've got new listeners, that don't always listen to us.
It's pretty good.
Maybe Jason and Lee have roped some new listeners in for us, and this is your chance to hook them.
To wow them with my reviewing abilities. It's a really good film. It's very funny.
Fantastic. What would we all rate Deadpool 2 out of 5?
Did I give it a 4, Liam?
4,
Do you remember?
4 sounds
I don't know,
about right.
probably.
5.
Yeah, I'd go for 4 as well. I realise my review maybe
No,
sounded more negative.
I'll go 2 then, just to match you on the other one. 2, but I had a great time.
I'll say you used to do 0.5s, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll do 3.5, which is about the exact same as the first Deadpool. But it worked better and worse in equal doses, and it's pretty much the same.
Oh shit, maybe mine was
I'm not gonna be
3.5.
running to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun. Made my wife cry, which is semi-positive, semi-negative. It was great.
Pairs well with Menorca.
I can't remember now if when we discussed it last I went for 3.5 or 4, so refer to last episode for my
Helpful,
score.
Liam.
What about those new listeners, Liam?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
that's it. I'll
undersold
try to get them
this.
to listen to new other episodes we've done. It's all part of my ploy. I watched a show on Netflix that I've been dying to discuss, but I wasn't allowed to last week because I already hit my 3-limit quota.
Yep.
The first sort of season's just finished, although it has been announced for like a second run, not necessarily a season. Anyway,
Oh, Queer Eye, Liam. You're talking about Queer Eye.
Queer Eye can fuck off. Cat's started to get addicted to it, and I just don't
Yeah,
care.
I'm glad, because it's a great show.
I'm sure I'd
Anyway,
like
carry
it
on.
if I bothered watching it, but I've got so many other shows that I want to watch.
You have such a hard life, Liam.
Thank you. So I got horrendously addicted to the Joel McHale Show with Joel McHale.
Oh shit! Okay.
I've seen a episode of that.
Yeah, was it called The Soup or something that he used to do?
Yeah, I used to do the soup.
And this is basically that, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, pretty much. I think they've condensed some of it, but I couldn't tell you exactly where or how.
Yeah. So I don't really like sketch shows, and to me this feels similar. It's more of a clip show than a
Very
sketch
borders
show. but-
on a sketch show.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know why I thought it was great. They release episodes every Sunday, and it became like a Sunday ritual for me to sit down, watch it. Like any sort of sketch show type thing, it's very hit and miss. But I thought it was great. 3.5 out of 5. More people should go see it because I want more of it.
Yeah,
What I think is
pop culture punditry. It's
Yeah.
it's either up your alley or not. So
I made Ellie watch an episode and she was not amused. So
yeah, it's also Joe McHale has a very particular brand of sarcastic, snarky humor, and like
Yeah.
for most, it's maybe, I don't know. To me, it felt a little like Americanized. That makes me like kind of tune out from it a bit, and then it's like anybody could get up on stage and make sort of slightly clever puns about something and then take a dig at something. But then it was well presented, and I like Joe McHale in general, so
Yeah.
it's good.
there's a weird ropey element to it that I quite enjoyed, where like a few times
Yeah.
he'd like fuck up reading the teleprompter or something, and he'd just be like, well, and just carry
That's
on.
what the live elements of it. I think it would be really fun to like be in the audience for.
Yeah.
It seems like it'd be a good crack, but the when it comes to like watching the show like week to week, I couldn't imagine it because it's like it's kind of like watching John Oliver. If you've ever watched
Yeah.
John Oliver, like because the news segments of John Oliver and what he's actually talking about, genuinely brilliant every week. But like the actual comedy, if you watch too much of it, just starts to wear you down because you can see the patterns and how they write it,
Yeah.
and how they sometimes take easy pot shots at shit nobody cares about, and it's just kind of it just wears you down a bit. And it's kind of the same sense of humor with Joe McHale, so that's like
Yeah.
the same taste. If you like that, you'll like it.
See, I totally get what you're saying there, and that's why I think for me it worked watching it weekly, which is why I think it's really weird that the second run that they're doing like 6 episodes and they're releasing them all on the same day, which
Oh,
just
are they?
doesn't make sense. Considering the format is basically they look at sort of the previous week's trashy reality TV
shows
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It just seems like a
Yeah,
really
that's
weird idea.
That's like a totally different concept for a different show, almost.
Yeah.
I wonder if it will. I wonder if the second season will just be like a wildly different thing.
Well, apparently the reason why they've decided to do this is because the Netflix algorithm was suggesting that people were binge watching the show.
Okay. Oh, okay. But they were binge watching it surely to see 12 weeks long of old TV shows caught up and mocked. You know, I'm not sure that they're binging it to watch that 1 month's long range of TV shows. You know.
Exactly. So I give it 3.5 out of 5. I'm curious about seeing more, but I'm also a bit worried. But the first sort of season I thought was great. And then I saw this is going to make Ellie super happy. Season 5 of Parenthood. Is that a show that anyone here has seen?
No.
It's so good. It's so good. So it has, the reason why I decided to watch it is because it has Lauren Graham in, and I was like obsessed with Gilmore Girls for a while.
Of course.
And then like to get over that, I was like, oh, she's in this other show that ran for 6 seasons. I'll watch that. And I was expecting it to be like a 30-minute episode, like Modern Family type of humour.
Right.
But it's actually like sort of 40-minute episodes, and it has just a lot more emotion to it. It's so, like, the first episode had me nearly in tears, and I just wasn't prepared for that, and I was just instantly hooked. And now I'm up to season 5, which I finished the other day, and it's still just so good.
I just googled it very quickly just to make sure it was the same thing. It is loosely based on the 80s film Parenthood with Steve Martin, which is one of my, like, of its time kind of dated favorite family soap opera things, which is kind of the same tone that you're describing.
Yeah.
It's like it is funny at times, but it's also very sentimental, and
Yes,
it's also got
exactly.
like strong, like genuinely good family dynamics, and tells a real family story kind of thing with a kind of funny setup, but not too funny.
Yeah.
Which I totally recommend because it's got one of the best Keanu Reeves lines and characters. It was like the Keanu Reeves character of all his characters.
Heard about that.
I'll have to check
it's
that
just
out.
excellent. But so if you like the show, you probably like the actual film it's spun out of.
Awesome. I'll look forward to that. But yeah, season 5, it's basically more of the same. So if you liked the last 4 seasons, I don't see why you wouldn't like season 5. It's so good. 4 out of 5. I love it. It's one of my favourite shows now. I've got one more season left, and I'm going to be sad when it's finished.
I won't be, because it means you won't be reviewing it on the show anymore.
Don't give a fuck. That's everything for me that I'm allowed to do. Has anyone else got anything that they've watched or read? Because we haven't done a book review in ages, Ellie.
I'm trying to finish American Psycho. I keep getting waves where I'm like, I think I can manage another chapter, but it is just the same issue I've been having the entire time.
It's not good.
Yeah, I can't. I hate the fact that you've done this to me, Liam.
It's a classic. I'm sorry for trying to kind of give you, a literary
It's all right. I mean, if you
education.
study it, it's a different beast altogether. I have a friend. I have a guy I know who's writing his master's thesis on it, and he. I don't know what kind of guy he is. Really, he's not a friend. So I mean, I've heard him talk. He says, sometimes I get really into it, and I can only read a chapter at a time because it's so violent. And I was like, it's not that bad.
It's just boring.
Yeah, at one point you're like, okay, we get it, but it's the
Yeah.
excess in it where you're like, okay, I can kind of understand what he's trying to do here. By the time you get to the end, it's desensitization, like, completely, and it's a really interesting critique of American culture at that period in time. But I mean, Ellis was doing it, Palahniuk was doing it as well, and so I mean, you kind of get these guys where you're like, you're all doing the same fucking thing. But
I think that my exact issue with it is that it's the kind of book where you get, like, I don't know, maybe 30% of the way through, and I was like, oh, I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I keep hoping that it's going to, like, either add something new to it where it's like, actually, we're also trying to do this, or just twist slightly. But instead, the book is very much just like, this is what we're trying to do, and I'm going to make it as drawn out as I can so that you have to sit there and be like, yeah, I get it. I imagine if I didn't get it, I'd be like, this is amazing. But I was like, I very early on was like, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And now that I've sort of know what you're
it's
doing,
just tedious.
I'm done. Yeah.
How long have you been reading it now?
Oh, it's got to be like a year.
That's
I
too
hate it.
long. That's
Yes,
just
Liam, I
finish
hate it.
Just power down, push
I want
through.
to read my other books.
Yeah, in those scenarios when it's taking you a year and you're genuinely not enjoying it, the beauty of the world is that you can stop reading it instead of finishing it.
No, she's not
And-
allowed.
No, Liam can't
not
do
allowed.
it.
I feel like I have to finish it.
So has anyone read a book recently?
I've been listening to the first 10 chapters of The Grapes of Wrath.
How's that?
Yeah, it's actually I love it, but
Well, that's
I
good.
mean, you know what's there to fucking say about it? You just asked for a book, and I'm like, I have.
Yeah.
But
Is this what Ellie should read after she finishes American Psycho?
no, enjoy yourself, enjoy life.
Yeah.
Grapes of Wrath I think, is a very funny book because it's really fun and it's really well written, and you can tell that.
Steinbeck.
Jesus Christ, Steinbeck is having a great time, like recounting these fun characters, and even though the material is is set in a miserable time, and it's mostly about the drama of being in that miserable time.
Yeah.
The characters are all quirky fucking weirdos that seem, if not based on our amalgamations of real life experiences, they're genuinely creative and interesting people, but each and every one of them it just seems like they would be so much fun to write because I mean, even like for example, where I am now, there's like a preacher character, and the preacher character has given up preaching because he's lost his way, and he had a reputation when he was a preacher for like taking women back after the sessions and then just kind of like having sex out in the fields, and it was like I loved it. I loved those days. But he's got this like habit of just repeating himself over and over again about like I just don't have the spirit anymore. And to me, that's like a funny, really absurd character that definitely like rings true to like a lot of people's experiences of like shit times that even like the preachers have lost. What these like pinnacles of society have already they've given up as well. I don't know. Like obviously there's a lot of great like subtext and context to it and all, but I just think other than that it's actually a joy to read because it's actually funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine from a writer's perspective more than like oh, this is hilarious. I'm just like, as a reader I've been loving this. I just think from my perspective it's just funny to see somebody write characters like this and they genuinely pull you through what is probably a pretty miserable story.
Well, I just
It's only been 10 chapters.
I want to say thank you for classing up the show a bit, because that's sort of what we were trying to do with getting Ellie to read American Psycho, and that's failed. So thanks, Lee, for bringing some like intellectual weight to the show, which is exactly why I wanted both of you on, because that's exactly what I wanted.
What a shame that the film we picked. Not only did we prepare nothing for it, but it has to be that it's like the nadir of intellectual property. It's like it's real fucking terrible shit.
I mean, I think the reason why I have no sympathy for Ellie with this American Psycho stuff is because she's making me read these awful High School Musical books, and they're so bad, but I'm getting them done, and that's the difference.
Can picture Troy in every scene, and it makes the difference. It's
like if they were
visualized in your mind, man.
If they were written even like semi well, then yeah. But the way it's written, like these characters aren't the characters that I know and love. They're just they share the same name, but it doesn't have the right like voice for the characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there's so much like that. Sure, if you're a long-term fan of pretty much anything, that will happen to you.
Yeah. But also,
High School Musical has to be really up in the esoteric choice for fandom, though.
But like the other thing is, alright, the key thing about High School Musical is it's a musical, and that just doesn't work in book form.
You know what? Didn't actually piece that together when you said you were reading High School Musical.
The first question that came to my mind was like, is there a CD that comes with it?
There should be, but no.
Or like Tolkien books, always he had songs in it, and he had
exactly.
meters and stuff written out. You're like,
okay, play track one here.
Like,
yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Troy's Troy.
Together.
Yeah. And I guess in the first book, they talk about these boots are made for walking. So they don't even use an original song, but then they
my God.
It's ridiculous. I don't.
Which version?
I can't remember.
Question.
Dolly Parton or Jessica Simpson?
Dolly Parton, I'm pretty sure.
Or
it changes the dynamic completely.
Of course.
I was trying to figure that. I was confusing something else. Never mind. Keep going.
Okay. But yeah, do we have any other spoiler-free reviews we want to do?
Huh? Oh, well, I'm reading Last Shot, the Han Solo book that Lee sent me for my birthday, so thank you again. And I'm also reading, I kept on trucking on Don DeLillo's White Noise for my second or third read now, I think, of that one.
Jesus Christ. I finished that book.
Yeah, you did.
So I think I told you that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could talk a little bit about White Noise if you desperately desire, but
it's really good. Lee was. It's a depressing one, I think, that you told me as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So White Noise is about a guy,
Jack Gladney.
Who's a teacher in Hitler studies at a small town university, and basically the story is him collecting. Basically, it's told in his collection of thoughts day to day about his marital life, about his thoughts on mortality is often the biggest theme in it.
Yeah.
As well as just his exposure to other people, and we kind of get that summarized in very, I would say, what's that term? It's kind of like the old modernist writings. It's a postmodern book, but it's like the modernist thing where it's a stream of consciousness, kind of almost. Mm-hmm. And then sort of halfway through it, a cataclysmic event happens that realistically kind of confirms everything the character feared about mortality and his impending death, and the next half of the book is just him coloring everything in his life with just a miserable downward spiral. It's funny in that kind of dark way, but it was also so super true to a lot of, because I found I've shared a lot of the same fears and mortality with the guy, and fears in general, I suppose, just about my own pettiness. Like the guy, he's a very petty character, and he was terrible to read because he reminded me of how petty I can be. But the whole thing, I was reading this for months, and it came to a point where it was good and bad, because it was bad because then I sunk to like a real low point in what was up to that point like a couple of year long depression that I hadn't realized I was dealing with. But the good thing was that when I realized that, I was able to get like right over it immediately. Yeah. And realized, oh shit, these things have been weighing me down for a long time, and I got to sort that shit out. So the book was super useful for that, and it seems like I've now come on this show to talk about every single mental problem I could possibly come up with.
I mean, that's fine. Like I said, this is a safe space. It's all good. Yeah, it's just going on the internet forever.
It's only us on the internet. Sure, what the fuck do they care?
I mean, we have literally one person that tweets us, so I'm sure Amanda is going to be very sympathetic.
I was going to say, what will Amanda think? I'm dying to know.
Yeah. Amanda, let us know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't know if it can be like recommended. It's pretty miserable. If you find yourself in a depression and feel like maybe the best way to get out of it is to sink deeper, White Noise is the book for you.
What would you give it out of 5?
Books are weird. They're hard because like you if I had to rate, like, I think of books like you live with them. You know, like once you've done with them, they tend to just carry along and inform your character in life for maybe the rest of the eternity, the entirety of it. So I'd say, you know, it's like 5 out of 5, only for the fact that I'm never going to forget it.
Okay.
And it's going to stick with me for better or worse. It's like, it's not like a matter of enjoyment so much as a matter of shared experience. And that's what the best books do, and that's how they kind of, you know, the worst books are the ones that you read, you struggle through, and then you forget immediately because you're like, that's literally like weeks, months of your life gone down the fucking drain, like a High School Musical book.
Yeah, I mean, it's not taking me like months to get through them, thankfully, but
yeah, I would imagine not.
It's not a pleasurable
size 16 font.
So Jason, are you reading White Noise or have you read it?
I've read it before. I've studied the book.
Okay.
Right now I wanted to go through it again because I wanted to have a project with Lee where we could actually maybe make an adaptation of it. And then after a long conversation with him, he felt that maybe we could do something around the similar themes, but that it was probably a little bit too dense to adapt. So that was pretty much it.
I like how creative you both are. Like, I'm
Oh, we're
stuck
not.
with
We don't do
Ellie,
shit,
and it's
to be
just-
honest. Well,
yeah,
Lee writes
we do
quite a
shit individually.
Yeah.
But then we keep talking about doing more shit together, and then we're like, oh, but we've got all these individual things, so maybe after those, then it just happens. We have the show that we are struggling to keep going. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but if I can give Ellie just a little bit of advice with regards to American Psycho, finish it.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Finish
It's
it because one of the shittiest books I've ever read is one I love to
American
hate.
Psycho.
And it was William Burroughs' Naked Lunch. I despise that book so much because I was going through the exact same process you are, where you're like,
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, I get it. You're a heroin addict. You're a crazy person. You wrote the book backwards and you've baffled people for years. And it doesn't matter that you need these fucking weird alien creatures where they suck the cum out of that thing's penis in order to make themselves immortal or some shit like that. I don't care. You know what I mean? But I had to put myself through it to get to the end and be like, I know exactly what kind of book I hate, and Burroughs wrote it.
That's a good point.
It's
That
a
is
place
true.
where I have my barometer. I was like, this line, fuck it.
Yeah,
So
if
maybe
you get
that'll be
into
your
a
American
conversation
Psycho.
with somebody who like, yeah, you know what's one of the greatest books ever written? American Psycho, and then you could be like, you know, I actually took the time to read that, you know, end to end, and you know what, you are a fucking moron.
This conversation
And I can say
is
that
over.
because I read it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it. That's find the way where you can actually shut someone up at a party. It's like, I read American Psycho. It's the most beautiful. Shut the fuck up. It's a terrible movie. It's a terrible book. Bret Easton Ellis has written better things, which I haven't read.
So now it's time for housekeeping.
Yeah.
Let's find out what
Yay,
Amanda
housekeeping.
thought this week.
Before you do that, though, Liam,
Yeah.
just before you start reading the tweets there, buddy, we've not had Jason and Leon at the same time to talk about my favourite part of the show. We're going to keep track of how many DVDs Liam has in his to-watch pile.
Oh
so
my god, I was thinking about it when you were talking about how much you spent on Hamilton. I was like, man, that must have eaten into his DVD.
he can't afford it. So, Liam, last time we spoke, you had 1,101 films. 1,101. Yeah, 1,101.
Yeah. Well,
how's that going?
We recorded that 4 days ago.
Yes, so theoretically, Liam, there should be either no change or only good changes for you.
There's been no change.
Hey!
So we're at 1,101.
It's always a positive. Now, when we have guests on, what I like to do is I like to just take a moment to say to my guests, our guests.
Yeah,
I guess.
our
I
guests,
won't-
come on.
I won't steal them off you. But I just like to ask, how do you guys, what is that, does that sound okay to you? Or
I would
I don't know.
be furious if I get to the end of my life and I've actually managed to watch 1,100 films.
You haven't
because
watched that?
I just
Oh,
look
really?
at
Okay.
films. Fuck no. I maybe watched, I don't know, 300
I don't even-
in a lifetime. They're tough to ring around where and
so-
how long and which ones.
Since I've been monitoring how many films I've watched, which is January the 1st, 2013 is when I started sort of registering
Wow,
it,
yeah.
I've watched 1,391.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
man.
I logged in some movies on Letterboxd. I've
Yeah.
only logged them in, and I know I'm missing titles in there. And the films that I've logged in that I know I've seen, I'm at 1,981.
Jesus Christ, then maybe I have it wrong. Maybe the number.
I'm the same as you, Lee.
1,100 it's just in my head that seems like an ungodly amount of hours of your life that you are not even going to like remember.
But I had no
wasting
friends
much, and it's
growing
not
up.
for like.
It's a very sad
fair.
time.
I mean, I say the same about video games, but at least usually even if they're bad experiences, because it's got my agency involved, I feel like it's my experience.
Okay.
Therefore, I don't mind sinking that much time into it. But staring without interaction at something for up to 2 hours or more on something that you actually can't recall, which is often what happens to me in films, is then just actual shadowy time.
It was just
mean-
movies and masturbation. That's all.
Yeah,
It was.
that's still my life.
Bloody porn, Jesus Christ. That's a number.
That says more about Cat.
And that's
No.
Yeah.
got agency.
I think this is why I love Letterboxd so much, though, because when you do watch like an ungodly amount of films, majority of them are probably going to be somewhat average, and it's really handy to have somewhere where you can register your like immediate thoughts. So when someone's like, "What did you think of this film?" I can be like, "Oh, Project X." Type it in. I thought it was average. This one person was good in it. The end. But I have a way of just sort of remembering in a way.
Can you imagine, Liam, just very quickly, imagine what that seems like to the other person if someone's like, oh, Liam, you like films, what did you think about this? And then you go, 1 second, and just start, like, databasing, like,
yeah, but
apparently I thought it was okay.
3 out of 5.
I mean, Project X, as an example, was 2.5 out of 5, and I thought it was by no means a good film, but it does pass time, and it made me chuckle here and there. So,
Did it indeed. Can you recall a chuckle?
no.
I can recall it.
But I did say that I think I'm going to put attending an American party with red cups on my bucket list. Although the whole experience would most likely just be awful to me. See, this is the thing. I kind of use Letterboxd as a sort of diary and a way to not really review things, but just like remind myself of what weird phase of my life I was in at the time I was watching it.
Yeah, that's one of the wake-up calls I had, too, when I started logging in, and I was like, oh, my God, I've seen so much crap.
I've wasted
so much crap.
Life.
You know, the good is nowhere near the amount of terrible fucking movies. You know, I was like, I've seen how many movies of Sylvester Stallone's? Oh, God. It's not good. That's way too many.
That's more than 10.
This is where we're different, because I'd probably look at that and be like, which means I've only got 6 to go, so I need to do the other 6.
Oh,
I'm broken. And then I'd have to buy the other 6, and then that doesn't help my list get down.
yeah,
See?
but to answer
God.
Ellie, yes, I think that I own more movies than Liam.
Those aren't the ones he owns, though. That's just the ones that he has to watch.
Hasn't watched.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, that's completely
That's a
different.
to-watch
I
part.
have
The
I have
total
50
number
that
is
I have
terrifying.
That I own that I haven't watched.
See, that's where the
the
issue is.
difference,
Is
okay.
I'd be fine if he'd seen them, but the goal is that Liam has to get this number down. I'm genuinely trying to help him
That's
because
never gonna
I
happen.
think he has.
You're gonna die. Well,
To be
not
fair,
now,
he's doing-
but eventually.
I mean,
And
I'm going to
there'll be
die
such a
or go
list
blind
that-
before I get the list down.
Doesn't matter. Audio.
only
only,
gotta
man. You can
watch
give it
10.
listen to audio commentaries. It'd be great.
Yeah, loads
If he
of
watches
movies.
10 more, he gets below the start number from like a year ago, which is his current goal.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that you can't.
It's been a long current goal.
How can I put it? I lost what I was going to say. Screw it.
You can't quantify the amount of time you waste in life because
It's
Oh,
depressing.
you
but
don't know how long it's going to be.
Do you
Is that
imagine,
the outlook? Is
like,
that the
when you-
positive outlook?
Decide to have kids, and you're gonna have to pull out that DVD player when they're all watching shit in glasses that they just recently bought, and you'll be like, "No, you do it the old-fashioned way." You know, you're not gonna be able to find a thing to hook up to the TV. You're gonna have to keep the technology around, man. You're gonna be that weird guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah, that's
So
so
he's
true.
already, he's
So
already
am
said
I.
it, guys.
He's come to
I'm
terms
not,
with
I'm
that.
not lumping this all out to you. We're both gonna be one of those like, remember these?
Yeah,
This was
these
the
are
day.
discs. Yeah, like okay, so I know it's bad, and I'm trying to get better, but I had a little slip recently, and now I'm just trying to get back on the straight and narrow
Back
with
on the
it.
horse, yeah, back on the
The
horse.
problem is this
Back in the
year
saddle.
I've stopped watching films a lot. I've only watched 57 films
Yeah.
this year, and most of them have
Oh,
been at the
that's
cinema.
way more than me.
I think I've watched 10.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm somewhere in that ballpark, maybe up to 20.
Yeah, Lee and I are both like.
I was keeping
whatever.
track of them, and I stopped keeping track of them as of last month because there was nothing getting added for a whole month.
Yeah,
but
just don't care.
I've seen like 4 films recently, and that was like, well, yeah, I can start watching films I actually want to now because this is my job.
Yeah.
I can just do this to enjoy. I'm playing more games.
this thing, I find with this sort of thing, with everything, like with video games and films especially, I go through waves with them where if I watch like a really good film, that will set that spark off, and I'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I need to watch more.
We're
and
so
I need
glad we
to-
killed it with X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
Pouring water on that spark.
You're never going to get that number down.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
No, and it basically it's exactly the same with games. Like, recently played God of War, loved it, and now I'm like, okay, I want to play more like that. So I mean, Bloodborne isn't really like that, but I've
Yeah.
gone to that, and I go through these like weird phases with stuff.
Until you find the one that ruins it.
Yeah,
So you can play Bloodborne, and then you play like, I don't know, I haven't played it, but I hear that Dark Souls 2 is the kick in the ass one that's like, it's not that great, and then you're like, I'm disillusioned with the whole
yeah.
thing.
So then I jump
Or-
back to film.
Yeah, and then jump back to film, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or reading, you can get the last part of that High School Musical book done.
Oh, I've got 2 more.
You'll
books
remember
to
those
go.
forever.
I have 2 more, and Ellie reckons that she's brought me more.
I have bought you more. I don't reckon. I can see them. I've bought you 6 more.
But some of them are the
6?
same, aren't they?
I've not double checked.
Okay.
How many did they make?
Oh, there's so many, Lee. It's amazing.
It's like the bit of
That doesn't sound
Babysitter's
basic at
Club.
all.
This
man.
might be the first podcast that we'll review every single one of them.
It's gonna be weird. Ellie, you're gonna have to send me a copy of Liam's suicide note. He dedicates this to you. It's like high school.
Yeah, it was like I tried to work this out. Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
I think if that
Yeah.
happens, Ellie will have to do like a special episode by herself where she just reads the suicide note.
Where I culture swap your suicide note.
Perfect. Perfect.
But
You're just like,
you
it's time for catching up with Ellie.
get Cat to
Ellie
read them to
and
you, man.
The,
Sit in the
the
tub
final
with the
words
face
of
cloth on your
Testament of
face.
Flame.
You're gonna be great. Sit in the tub with the face cloth on your face and get Cat to read the High School Musicals to you. With a
Oh,
little
she
bit of
would never
music in
do
the back.
that. She would never do that.
That's yeah.
No. It's hard enough getting her to help me dry myself after I've had like a bath or shower.
We
so-
don't need to go into more of your weird stuff, Liam.
She dries you off, man.
Yeah. Jason, you don't want to get into it. It just gets
I
weird.
do want to get
and
into it. This is actually kind of fun.
If you've got a number on the episode, we can catch up right now. And then,
Yeah, I should just start keeping track of when me and Liam have discussed these weird
when
things.
these issues
Right,
first come up.
because it's I'm
It's
sorry.
episode 46. Can't dry myself.
Is it because you're not flexible or just damn lazy?
No, it's because I have like way too much body hair, so it takes 2 towels, and if we've got 2 towels, we might as well have one person operating a towel each.
See, this is the why he didn't like the Chewbacca seat. It's the mud.
Yeah.
The mud on
Oh.
Chewie is just one of those things where he's like, this is my fucking nightmare.
Yeah, trigger.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And like, so Kat's always like, "Oh, you take too long." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but that's because the showering takes like 20 minutes, and the drying is another 20 minutes on top." We've tried using like a hairdryer to see if that sped up the process.
Right.
Didn't.
Do you have carpets?
Yeah.
You could roll around.
I
I thought
mean,
you were talking about on him.
No, we've established that.
I don't know. Just rolling around on a carpet to dry myself.
All right.
feels
Now I really
weird.
want to ask you a really fun question. Do you trim?
I worry when you say the word.
I do trim. Yeah.
Okay, and now let's get to your dick and balls. Do you take
Yep.
everything off where it's just one of those things where you're just like, and then there's that hole where there's no hair, and then everything else is covered?
No, I'm nervous about doing that. I've done it with the balls once,
Right.
and I didn't really like it.
It's itchy.
I was,
isn't it?
yeah, and I just became like really too aware of them. Like whatever I was wearing, I was like, yeah, I can feel the balls just sliding along whatever it is, and it was distracting. So I trim it down, but I've also like nicked myself before when I was trying to shave them, and that's just awful. Like you,
Yeah, that happened to me too.
I think that happens to everybody.
yeah,
Absolutely.
So I try and be
It's one of those
careful.
lessons. I use a woman's razor now. They're so much better.
Oh, really? Because what I've heard, but I'm
They
too
lather
nervous
first.
to try.
They got that extra little.
Yeah. Well, you can get this like cream, can't you?
This
that
should
you
be
put
culture
on.
swap.
You put the cream on and then you shower it off, and that's meant to like do hair removal. But I'm just,
shit! I wouldn't want to do that though.
I'm really nervous about
you don't
that.
Yeah, I
stick-
don't think-
it's like
I
sticking
don't think
battery
very
acid
loose
on
on
your
your-
fucking. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about it.
You have?
That exact
Really?
thing. Yeah, and that it's painless, and that there has been no side effects or negative side effects to date.
Just-
so I mean,
it just
that's pretty
tastes-
good.
Yeah, but it'll be just Liam's luck, won't it? That Liam will try it now.
Oh,
It'll be like,
exactly,
Lee told me
yeah.
it's
It
safe.
smells like fire.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I'm thinking a friction burn is bad enough, but just like having the whole balls just ruined would be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I really want to get waxed, but Kat won't come with me.
Sensitivities, different.
Okay, yeah, I can understand it. My girlfriend does when you get older, you start losing hair on the top of your head. You get some in your ears, and then you get some on your back. And I got these colonies now. There's a little like 2 patches on my back where I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing there? You're supposed to be on the top of my head, God damn it. And so Leslie, what she does is she takes she revels in this, but she stopped reveling in it because the last time she did that patch on my back, I actually started to bleed, and then she felt real bad, which
Yeah.
I used a couple of times to
Oh,
remind
God.
her. I was like,
Yeah.
But that's when the waxing is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
Works.
I've got like a lower back patch that I
Yeah,
get
me
her
too.
to
I got
shave
that
off,
one
but
too.
we've
It's like
yeah,
it's like
we've
it's
not
too
done
hot for when your ass is there. It's weird.
Yeah. I really want to get the arse sorted out because that's just a complete mess. But the thing is,
You got black hair too. I'm blonde. It's not as bad.
yeah, exactly. And like, I know that with the arse, if you go to like a proper place to get it waxed, it will need to be trimmed down first. And I've tried that, and it's just awful. It's a terrible experience. And I want to go, but I also like want someone there to hold my hand as I do it. And Kat just refuses.
She refuses to
If
hold
I
your
can
hand.
film it for Nerd
Yeah.
on Nerd, I'll do it.
I mean,
Ellie, take Ellie.
yeah, I don't think Ellie would be supportive. Is the thing.
I would support you,
You could
if
let
I was
her
allowed
laugh
to
a
film
little
it.
bit, and then after that she'll
Yeah.
hold your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got to
but
give and take there, man.
it's just going to be a traumatic because I know that it's going to be traumatic. Like they're going to take one look and just be like, "Get the shears."
Well, then it might as
Yeah.
well be.
You might
it
be the
as well
second
be
person
good,
or
like,
third person
podcast
that week
material.
where they're like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna get our John Deere products out."
Yeah, I should probably just
I
get
do-
over myself and do it, but I'm just nervous.
I do love the idea of you just lying on a table and then like taking your top off and then just going, nah, fuck this, and get the industrial shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be funny.
And then the other thing is, I'm not sure, right, with the arse, do they just do like the crack and then the cheeks are still going to be hairy, or do they just do the whole lot?
I don't know, man. My ass crack is one that I'm fine with.
Yeah,
It's like the patch I have on the back of my back. Just because I'm blonde, it just looks like my back is slightly out of focus on the bottom. That's all it is,
Okay.
you know. So it's just
Yeah,
like it's like I'm
natural
catching,
blur.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I have a weird back tattoo, and
Yeah.
then they just kind of
Oh
put that
yeah,
over it on the
yeah,
TV
they
screen.
censored it.
Exactly. That's all it is because I have blonde hair. It must be a little bit more difficult, you know.
yeah, it is. It's
It must be.
it's
It
horrible.
must be. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. Now the problem with this is that I'm picturing you naked, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, you know, like how hairy is he? Is it like Harry and the Hendersons hairs? Is it Chewbacca? Is it?
I mean, I think you'd be surprised with like the chest that it's not like a proper carpet type thing.
Well, lift up your shirt. Look, I'll show
I'd
you.
rather not.
It's not bad.
See, mine's quite similar to that. It's,
Okay.
but I have patches as well. Like on the left hand side, there's random patches that I don't know why, and they're not on the right hand side, and I don't like it not being parallel.
Yeah, it's like the Protestants. They just left.
Yeah, exactly. Once you get to the arse area,
Yeah.
that's because like the legs are really hairy, and then it just so like from the waist down, it's ridiculous,
All right.
and that's where I'm most sort of concerned. Like the lower back, I'd be happy for Kat to try and
where
wax
was the
herself.
concern? Oh yes, that's right. I was trying to remember how the fuck we got on this subject. Oh, because it takes you a million years to drown.
Yeah.
That's
There we
right.
go. So that's what I meant. So like Kat,
I was just like, what's he doing this to himself for? Why does he want to
But
get
just
it all
imagine,
sorted?
yeah.
It just seems like it's so much effort. Just live with it, man. And then
But this
like,
is the other
but
issue,
you
right?
lose half an hour of your day every day.
yeah, like Kat takes the
I
legs,
understand.
and I take like the top half, and just doing one leg will take Kat like a solid 3 minutes.
The thing to bear in mind, guys, the other thing to bear in mind is, as someone who has known Liam for years and has, 4 years younger than Liam and had to teach him that he was wiping the wrong way, I have learned that
Okay, this is another.
oftentimes
conversation on
Liam will
culture
complain
swap.
about a difficulty.
Or culture swipe.
Liam
you
will be
should say.
Liam will be like, oh, this thing's just so difficult. It's just such a nightmare for everyone. I can't believe it. And then you'll talk to him and you'll actually ask him like what he's doing. And it would not surprise me if you went, Liam, how are you drying yourself? And he went, I sort of just waft a towel in front of me to draw the water off. And you're just like, right. I think we've figured it out.
Like what is the case?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He puts 2 towels on the floor and then just blows at his chest.
I can't understand how you can't like do the fucking baloo action and get that shit done.
See,
and
that's-
it not take like a minute and a half
That's the
at
thing.
most if you really want to be thorough.
I do that one, and I never find I can get the back completely dry.
You gotta,
that makes sense.
move it up and down.
Yeah,
You
that,
gotta
and
dance
then
with it.
like that. I mean, this is a podcast, and we're doing a lot of visual things at the moment.
Yeah, a lot of
but,
visual, yeah.
We all have our
Yeah.
clothes on. I exposed myself
Jason
a little.
partially did not. Yeah.
yeah, it is just. Anyway, housekeeping. Amanda tweeted us.
Housekeeping, yeah. Well, especially when you have to shave all that off. It must be a really intense housekeeping.
Yeah,
Got to pay someone loads for the hairs
Gets in
and
the radiators and
crevices.
everything.
Jesus.
this is the other reason. Like, I'm sort of nervous because how often once I start doing this, how often am I going to have to start like going?
Yeah, like probably every week or every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's just it's a
I mean,
new
it depends
routine.
how fast it grows back and how intolerable.
Yeah,
it
if you're like
becomes to dry
Wolverine,
again.
then that's instant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Yeah.
Maybe you should do one of those like how bad is your life and how much do you need to change it, and then get one of those like chemical fucking surgeries done. Like, you no longer grow hair, but
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know, you're incontinent for life or something like that.
I've pretty much stopped trimming the arse just because it just felt like I was fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, it's
So
nature's brush.
I've just.
It's also a crinker collector there, buddy.
So, Amanda tweeted us.
Whoa!
When
We haven't got to that. This is all before housekeeping.
Yeah. So when I tweeted saying that we're recording with you guys, and Amanda's response when I asked for thoughts on X-Men Origins Wolverine was, "Really, or did you rope them into watching that 50 Shades porn, but just told them it's X-Men?"
Not yet.
So which
Not
point?
yet, Amanda.
No.
Yeah,
It sounds great.
I had to point out that that's not how Culture Swap works, and we get the guests to do the Culture Swap. And Amanda said she's interested to listen and see if it's a roasting of the movie or if Jason and Lee are going to defend it. So
It's going to be a mixed bag.
It's going to be mixed, yeah. There's a couple of good things in there.
There's
Good
no-
ideas,
there's-
poorly executed. We'll see.
There's no binary system here. Wolverine is a whole spectrum onto itself.
Yep.
I can't wait. Also, she tweeted us when she was listening to our Avengers Infinity War special. Me, when I say what do I always want from film, and Amanda yelling at the podcast that she knows can't answer back. Surprises. So I'm pleased that Amanda has listened enough that she now knows me better than Ellie does.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what you say on the podcast, but in real life, you just say you want everything from films. You're just non-stop, Liam. You're always complaining about films.
Everything
Yeah.
and more. There's the surprise.
Yeah, I am the thing about the internet that Jason hates. And that was it for housekeeping. Culture swap.
Brief.
Swap my culture.
Hooray! We did X-Men Origins Wolverine because Jason and Lee made us. Now we're going to find out why.
I'm going to give it a spoiler warning. If any of you haven't seen X-Men Origins Wolverine
what
and
the
want to
fuck?
go see it but haven't watched it yet,
No.
this is going to have spoilers.
Now's
If you're
the
that
time.
person, email us because that would be fascinating to talk to you.
I mean,
They want us to
it's-
spoil this. Come on now.
who even cares what's spoiled?
I just feel like I have to give the warning in case there is someone
What
out
is
there.
the spoiler? Like Wolverine loses his memory, like the thing that they
Yeah, no,
that
that's a good
sets
point.
up his
Yeah, wait.
character in the other films.
What would the spoiler of...
His girlfriend
Can you
dies.
spoil this?
That
Does
all
anything
the
happen in
characters
this
they
film?
introduce, all the characters they introduce, don't exist in the other films. Not give away that they're probably not going to be in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. There's
Holy
really
shit!
nothing.
I guess the only spoiler is her dying at the end.
Yeah.
Or did she? Is she another hypnotic
Oh god.
fucking projection? Who the fuck cares? Well, do you know what? I think there were plans. She had like an audio log in the Wolverine. So I don't know if that was supposed to be an Easter egg to say she's alive and he just doesn't know, or who the fuck cares, really? I mean, this is to me. This is to kind of start us off. X-Men Origins is a wholly separate, standalone film that lives in a bubble onto itself. That only when I rewatched X-Men 2 in the last couple of months did I even realize it was trying to connect to a bunch of shit that happens in that film. But I didn't realize that at the time.
Because he goes
I was
back
just like,
to that like treatment facility, doesn't he, in X2?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happens, and you also get to see Stryker's son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is like the main MacGuffin of X-Men 2. So there's like a whole sort of working universe that they're trying to build to say yes, this is definitely the working prequel to the Bryan Singer films and that one Brett Ratner film, which nobody. I mean, I don't even. That was out at the time, I think. So I have no idea what the fuck, even if they considered adding in that lore into this film.
It is sort of fascinating that this film sort of does have its own little place in the universe, in that every other film has now cut it out of it and just been like, no, that didn't happen. So
exactly.
It's like this film that was like, we're going to carry on, and then the moment it came out, they were like, actually, no, that didn't happen. Forget we've made that film.
2 years later, or 1 year later, whenever First Class came out, it was
Yeah,
immediate,
yeah.
like everything about the timeline that Origins didn't happen.
Well, wasn't
it's
the
amazing.
original plan that this was going to be like the start of a new kind of series where they do X-Men Origins for other characters?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
They were going to do Magneto, and then
They were
that
doing
got
Magneto.
dropped
Storm.
and tied into X-Men First Class.
Okay.
That's right.
Boom.
And,
I just
then
did film knowledge.
Well done.
Exactly, and the thing with X-Men Origins, even though it got all the money in the world that it required, critics hated it so much and fans were not approving enough that they said, let's just take that Magneto film and slowly incorporate that into a far superior film that Matthew Vaughn is working on. And that's how we got my favorite X-Men film, First Class. So, I mean, out of this in two separate entries in the X-Men series, one after the other, I got two of my favorite films on two separate sides of the scales. Because I think First Class is just like this pure action, straightforward comic book in through and through feel of a film that is just so much fun from start to finish and has really memorable moments all the way through. And Wolverine is like that upside down, where it's true, all of those statements are true, but all of them are wrong at the same time. So I don't know what I would love to say I had a huge reason, and I do have a thing that I could help us structure our discussion around if you want, and pitch in on this, because it's something I've been thinking about for years. Because I think this time I watched the film for this show was the first time I watched it sober. So, it was far harder to watch than I ever remember it being. But it also helped me try to piece together what has been my couple of year-long aspiration now, which was to make a drinking game out of X-Men Origins Wolverine. And so, the best part about a drinking game is you get to make up rules.
Yeah.
So I instead of my usual preparation for like what we would do with Atlantic Screen Connection is that we would delve in so deep and to the point where you hate film, in Liam's case, and actually it puts you off film further because you've explained thoroughly how a film is supposed to be good and that therefore makes it worse. Yep. Forgoing that, I instead pieced together rules of a drinking game that are basically failed criticisms and also highlights of the film, collections of moments and quotes that I just put together, and that was going to serve as my contribution to this conversation. But I wanted to say it out first that I wanted to open the floor and say maybe if we wanted to go to other people, like giving your opinions of the film in general, and then thinking about rules that you could add to the game as we went along. That could be a little fun little running game, if at all possible.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I can't believe that's awesome that you made a drinking game. I wish I'd had the drinking game when I watched the film.
Yeah,
but...
I've been drinking each and every time. That was kind of a game, but the game of life, but or coping. But no, I always saw little patterns and shit throughout the film, and my favorite moments, and I thought, God, if you got a bunch of people here and just like a punch bowl between them, Jesus Christ, you could kill a man on the shit that you could come up with for this drinking game. And the 3 or 2 and a bit pages of rules I have for the game so far, asterisks, lets me know that yes, indeed, a man would never make it through this game without dying. So I don't know if what you want to maybe just talk about general impressions first, and then maybe kind of
that works.
Spin into. So I think it's pretty clear that I love this film. I have no recollection of the first time I watched it. It definitely wasn't in cinema. I don't know what. I think the first time I watched it, I also hated it for all the reasonable reasons you're supposed to hate it, which is that if you really like the X-Men films, which I did, even with all their faults, I mean, I still like the third one, which is terrible. And especially in and around that time, leading up to First Class, X-Men films just had we're on a shaky downward trend for a little while there, but I was still on board. I still loved the X-Men as characters, and it's still true. Their latest film is the Apocalypse film is one of my guilty pleasures of 2016, as is Jason's. But I don't know if I imagine I didn't like it at first because of all the reasonable reasons. It's one of the worst scripted stories anyone has ever cobbled together. Dialogue, plot points, how it ties into the lore that it seems to want to distance itself for, the the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the CGI, the overdramatic soundtrack, just pretty much every element of it it's kind of like the worst.
Yeah.
But then, somewhere between the first viewing and the second viewing, I developed something called taste. It was an acquired taste, and it was for just really quite high-budget, terrible films. And my perspective on the film entirely flipped around. I think it's because I got distanced from the X-Men franchise over time. Yeah. I allowed myself to grow up a little, and with that came maturity, and with maturity came laughter. So I could see the film for what it really should have been from start to finish, which is kind of like a Room-esque disaster that just makes you laugh from start to finish and just how terrible it is, and that every figment of it fails, and that's what makes it all the more impressive, because it's hard to get so much money and so much talent in one place and just fuck it up so hard.
Fumble the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like fumbling a nuke.
That's what always surprises me about these big budget films, because the amount of people that have to okay bad ideas before they get made.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does someone not just go, should we do this?
That's what I mean. If you look into the production of it, it's very telling. Like, they obviously greenlit it on concept alone. Hugh Jackman had a huge hand in not just production, where he put his own money into it, but also clearly in directing what everybody else's job was via that production. You hear he has not only strong opinions of what everybody does, but he clearly had hands in every pocket to kind of make sure he was catering to something, which kind of like warning signs, because I don't know if actors that maybe leave people's other jobs. I mean, producers already get a bad rap as it is, but then you have your own job and now you're a producer. It's worrying. Just because you understand your character doesn't really mean you understand storytelling. But on top of that, and maybe this is due to the pressure applied from several production insights and stuff like that, who had the money and where, and who was pressuring who, but the script, it started principal photography without the final script, and so they were literally updating scenes day to day, trying to catch up with the production that had not only been greenlit, but greenlit so far in advance that they'd done pre-production, got most of the shit together, and worked straight into not having anything cohesive to tie it to. So that explains so much of the problem, because you can tell from the dialogue that so much of it sounds like it was written off the cuff of a sleeve or a scrunched up coffee napkin. Where it's like, and you will say, did you just call me Blob? It's
God,
like, no, he just called him Bub, but that's the best we could do in the short circumstance to how they end up working in this Blob Wolverine fight scene that the nerds want. It's shit like that, where they clearly they had so much to cater to and so little time to work on a functioning script that it feels exactly like every 5-10 minutes it's a different film with equally poor writing each and every time. It's kind of like an anthology to itself, and it's really special in that way, I think. But that's my general oversight, so if somebody wants to take it from there.
I have my thoughts from when I first watched it on May 31st 2014.
Wow.
Where I said I was rather apprehensive about X-Men Origins Wolverine, since it generally gets a pretty negative reception. Perhaps my low expectations helped, because I actually didn't really mind this. I mean, it's not great, but it's not much worse than X-Men The Last Stand. It just requires the brain to be switched off and any previous conceptions regarding these characters to be completely disregarded, which is a shame but hardly surprising. I have no idea why Will.i.am is in this movie.
I love that you had to refer to your letterbox once more.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
Such
relevant to our own conversation.
I heard about Letterboxd 6 months ago.
Yeah. I need a life.
So you were pretty middling to high on it.
Yeah.
In the wake of removal from context and crushingly low expectations.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting watching it, and I said to Kat, this came out a year after The Dark Knight, which...
Oh, Jesus.
I kind of feel like...
That's what I mean. That can't help things, right?
Yeah, I feel like with comic book movies, you have, like, before Dark Knight and after Dark Knight, and it's...
Oh, yeah, the early adapters as well were just the worst.
Yeah.
Now my film is the next edgiest film. We got a spin back around and make it a Batman film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that explains a lot about how the tone is not good.
I mean, yeah, I was reading like the IMDb trivia that said the initial script was meant to be R-rated, and Hugh Jackman was like,
Yes.
"Nah, we can make this PG-13." So, well,
Jesus Christ.
maybe this could have been like, you know, Logan, what, 8 or 9 years before Logan happened, but no.
I've got a feeling even if they'd let them do the R-rated version, it probably wouldn't make it much better.
wouldn't
I mean,
have
yeah,
been,
admittedly, you get a couple of scenes in the R-rated version where like Wolverine cuts off an arm, but the
Yeah.
rest of it is still going to be they sew up Deadpool's mouth and make him a teleporting ninja.
See, I remember when like I'd forgotten watching this, and I'd seen it like online and stuff. People being like, "Oh yeah, Deadpool with laser eyes," and I'd forgotten how they got to that point. But
Yeah.
within like the logic of the film, it kind of makes sense.
The problem with it is that so I come from this film. I come from a place of like I had read Wolverine Origins, the actual story, which is one of my favourite Wolverine stories ever. I love
sweet
it.
God, you poor bastard.
I love it. It's great. I think Origins was so cool. So I came into this film being like, oh man, they've adapted it. And what this film does very cleverly is it tricks you by showing you that first scene, which is pretty much ripped from the graphic novel. And I was like, this film, they're doing it. They're doing Origins. And then it literally jumps to Vietnam. And I'm like, oh, okay, they've skipped a lot of Origins, but they're doing the second part of Origins. That's Vietnam. Then they're out of Vietnam, and I was like, oh no, this film's not doing Origins at all. This film is lying. And then at the end, they have the audacity to be like, also, we're going to ruin this other comic book character. We've already fucked up Origins, but we'll drag Deadpool into it. It's just unforgivable to me.
That's scathingly accurate, and also hilarious, because it brings up one of my my favorite rules in the drinking game. Yeah. So you have to take a drink every time Logan starts a new life. So I can summarize exactly how many new lives Logan starts right here. There is he starts with the wars. That's his first new life.
Yeah.
Then there's Vietnam, his second new life. Then there's Canadian Lager. Then there's Weapon X. Then he runs from that and he becomes Superman. With the Kents, and then they die, so he goes into revenge mode, and then he becomes sad Wolverine once his wife reveals that she's betrayed him this entire time, and then about 2 minutes later he becomes revenge mode again because I don't know, he literally went back on the thing he said he would not do, and then he became memoryless. So all in all, that is 4, 8, 10 drinks throughout your night. Right there and then. Jason, that's your segue in.
Oh, well, I like that you pointed that out, the 10 different lives, because it ties into what I have to say a little bit later about multiple personalities and PTSD. So it'll be interesting to talk about that. My first initiation to this one is kind of funny because a lot of what was being said online about the movie wasn't good before it came out. And, you know, there was this pirated copy that had found its way online
that's right.
30 days before. And one of my buddies had downloaded it, and he had made a copy for me. And I was like, oh, you know what? Screw it. I'll watch this with, you know, the unfinished version. And I was like, this has to be a joke. You know, this feels like a fan edit. You know, it looks terrible and whatnot. So there's no way they did this at all, you know. And then, lo and behold, when it comes out, I didn't buy it on DVD. I didn't go see it at the movie theater. But my buddy had gone to see it at the movie theater, and he was like, it's the same thing. The effects kind of look okay. And so I was like, oh, no. So I never really bothered to watch the finished version until, I don't know, 2012 or something like that, where I was like, I'm going to go through, you know, the X-Men things, and I'll pop in, you know, X-Men Origins Wolverine. And I saw with, like, the final effects, and I was like, this is not good. And then there was today. I actually finished watching it 15 minutes before coming online with you guys. I've been putting it off all week, but I was taking notes as I was going on because this is the weird rabbit hole I went down. I was like, you know what? I wanted to kind of make it funny, to have, like, really intellectualize the film to show that they actually knew what they were doing. And I started, like, reading up on philosophy and the hyper real and whatnot. And I started talking with one of my friends yesterday, Carrie, and she was like, I don't think that this applies to it at all. And I was like, I know, right? And so I ended up spending a lot of time doing research and trying to be, like, smart about it. And then I figured, you know what? I can't do this. There's such a little time delay, and I hadn't watched it again until that point. And so I was like, screw it. I'll just throw all my philosophy crap out the window, and I'll just go for a straight-up interpretation of the movie. But based on how the movie is structured itself, if you were just really paying attention to the movie and how everything works, you can connect the dots, that Logan himself is dealing with multiple personalities after being sick, and that you add to that he's suffering from PTSD after committing accidental patricide. And so I was kind of like, that's kind of interesting, because Victor seems to be his alter ego throughout the entire movie, is that he's not really there. And so, like Lee pointed out, all these lives to me are him restarting, coming back from PTSD, reliving certain moments and trying to figure out after his fragmented self where the hell he fits into the picture. Because they do roughly skip through 30 years without actually seeing anything.
Yeah, blink.
Yeah. He goes from being a kid to like World War II, I think. Right?
War general.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Holy shit. I mean, I thought about something. Like, I did a similar thing to Jason as well, where I was like, maybe I should over-intellectualize this. Maybe I should really bring it hard and some fucking crazy crackpot nonsense. And I did have the idea that because of those exact lives, I took a different offshoot there and went for maybe this is the story of reincarnation.
Yeah.
Like that belief. And that I was going to make this whole like complex, like get all the tenets of reincarnation as that's Hindu, right? And or is it Buddhism? I can't remember.
One of them.
Terrible religions. Yeah, that's a nice generalization. That's the but for who? Yeah. So I was thinking about like pinning down all the tenets about what you have to do with relation to karma and so on, how that factors into reincarnation, and then try to play off like the decisions and statements that Wolverine makes, and oddly how contradictory he becomes, being a part of the fact that he is technically like the same person in a different body each time, therefore that affects where he is. I was going to make a huge fucking sweeping, wide-scale, stupid trip for us all, but just, I thought a drinking game would be more apt.
Yeah, well, I went down your route. I have it all detailed.
Thank God.
I watched some of the extras on the disc to see if that would give me some enlightenment.
Oh,
as to
lucky
the
you!
thought
I
process.
downloaded a copy of this filthy fucking thing.
There was
Nope.
there was an interesting discussion between Stan Lee, who I think created the X-Men, and then the guy that specifically created Wolverine. And apparently the whole reason why Wolverine was created was for the Incredible Hulk to have a good adversary. And Stan Lee was just like, but the Hulk would win. He would just pummel Wolverine instantly. And the guy was like, but Wolverine can heal. And Stan Lee was like, oh yeah, good point. And it was fun watching these like two old guys who had created these things having the sort of discussion that you would find in a playground when this sort of movie would come out. But it didn't really give me any enlightenment as to why this movie exists in the way it does.
Yeah, why this is a disaster, but
yeah,
a good insight into why Twitter is a disaster.
Yeah.
You've forgotten what it was all about, people. It was all about just like, whoa, but he's got iron skin, so he can't be hurt, and like, oh, that's so cool. But my guy has extra big lasers, and that's what's super fun about that. But no, it's like your Wolverine is a fundamental, criminal in the eyes of the moral society.
While you guys were talking about the like PTSD and multiple personalities and that stuff, I've had a realization, right? At the end of the film, they specifically say we cannot kill Wolverine by shooting him, but if we shoot him in the head, we will. His memories don't heal, right? Mm-hmm. So we either have to assume that in the 100, however long he's been alive, he's either never been shot in the head, or he definitely has been shot in the head. We've seen him be shot by groups of people. So it is entirely possible that the Wolverine we're seeing in all those different times is a completely new, or a relatively new person, in that they've been shot in the head, him and Victor, and lost memories and shit.
Yeah, it had to be adamantium bullets, though.
No, but that's only because he has adamantium.
There you go.
Yeah. And before then, he doesn't.
Oh,
if you
that's
shoot him in the
right.
head when he's bone, you're good.
Yeah.
So
Oh, there you go. That's
It's
tying into
entirely
Jason's
possible.
theory right now. It's beautiful. You've done it, Ellie. You've
they
found
might
the
have been
thread.
geniuses.
Literally, yeah. We opened the thread at the front of that firing squad just before the credits at the
Yeah.
start, and that's literally that's like the motif throughout the film is that he's already been a broken man before, and now he's a broken man again.
Holy shit.
Sets the tone. It's incredible.
That was the excuse I had
beautiful.
for the bad CGI. It was like, it's not bad CGI. It's just if you look at how people's memories work, nothing is really in focus ever, you know. So he's imagining all these things happening to him. It's these giant illusions that Wolverine's creating around, you know, certain situations in order to kind of wrestle with the personalities that he has. You know, all those mutants that are in that team are different facets of his personality. He's going to go this way. He's going to attack this type of thing. That's why he dies at one point, and then Victor shows up again. You know, he goes to sleep at night, and then he wakes up. You know, let's say Victor, when he kills Bradley at one point, Bradley dies, but then Wolverine wakes up at another place, and you're like, oh, maybe he's dreaming about this. Or even with Kayla wakes up with scratches on her arm, and, you know, you could actually say that, oh, Victor is probably the alter ego the same way that the Hulk is, you know, with Bruce Banner, and that Wolverine, when he falls asleep, he actually becomes Victor, and he actually accidentally kills Kayla without even realizing it, you know, but he's blaming it on Victor the entire time. Which is kind of fun because you're like, well, there's precedent there for him waking up in the middle of the night and actually maybe close to killing her. Maybe this is what's happening again. He's actually running through a forest just before that as well. And the way that they shoot it, this is just to show how shitty he does this. He films Logan leaving off screen heading towards the right, which means that he's supposed to be heading towards the future. But then after that, the shot, once you see Victor and Kayla, he misses the shot and he puts it like Logan's running from, you know, right to left, which means that he's heading back towards his past. So he's trying to right some sort of wrong at that point. If you look at the cinematic language of it, and you're like, oh, so he is wrestling with the demons of the past. So Victor is part of his past as well, and he's trying to do something with that. That's for sure, you know. But it's kind of a weird thing because I feel like he puts himself through the Weapon X program in order to fight the alter ego, in order to fight Victor. Because they say Victor is indestructible. They can't do anything about it. But at the same time, if you look at all the experimental treatments that they had for multiple personalities and PTSD and all that stuff, this is probably one of those things where they're trying to give him a lot of stuff to work with. And so, in essence, that makes Stryker the hero of the film, which is kind of fun, if you want to look at it like that. Because I was comparing this to Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, where Billy Pilgrim invents this world called Tralfamador. After like the firebombing of Dresden, he comes back to reality after World War II, and he can't deal with it, and so he has to invent this sci-fi world for him to kind of go off into like Peter Pan. And I feel like Wolverine inventing the whole Weapon X program is him kind of going off to his Tralfamador, where he's like, this is where I'm going to have it, you know. And when he liberates the mutants all at the end, those are all little other facets of his personality that he could have, which culminate in the ultimate villain, which are a combination of every single one of the characters we've met throughout the film, except for the Blob. Yeah. Right? And so he's like, basically Wolverine's taking on himself, but at the same time, he's battling his alter ego at the same time as he's fighting Deadpool. And at the end, when they separate, you know, Sabretooth goes his own way, Victor goes his own way, and Logan stays there. And it's kind of him making peace with the fact that he's become one again after defeating all the other personalities. And so I thought it was kind of
then that's when he doesn't know who he is at the end, because he's never lived a life where he's had it all connected.
Yeah, and so like, you see shots of him in the mirror kind of exploring a little bit of what's going on. That's the boxing match in the middle of the film is at the 60-minute mark, where I thought it was cool. And so, I mean, he's there renegotiating with the other aspects of his personality to see who's going to be the alpha and take control to go off and fight Victor. And so that was kind of really fun. So yeah, so that was my take on that. It's a really poor thing, but I mean, the fact that he goes and falls asleep, we see him as a kid killing his father, being shot at, you know, Victor's there to help him, but we could also say that Victor, he's never really shown on screen at the same time. He's always opposite him, you know, at the beginning of the movie. And plus he's sick, so, you know, a lot of bedridden kids, I read this online before coming on the show, so... You know, top-notch research. They encourage kids that are kind of going through these rough times, especially when they're bedridden because they're sick and whatnot, to use their imagination to kind of keep their spirits up. And I figured that, you know, you have a very young Logan in the year 1800 whatnot, you know, just kind of trying to imagine what kind of a world it would be where he could be a guy who's not sick, who could heal a lot, and what would it take to get through all this? And so he's basically mapped out his entire life in order to deal with what he's actually dealing with, and he never really left the bed at the beginning of the movie.
Wow.
So all this happens in the
That
young
is-
boy's head.
That is some tight 5 minutes of research.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Jason, were
That
you
is very
lying
impressive.
about having finished 15 minutes before we started? Because that is impressive.
No, I was literally, I texted Lee. I was 15 minminutes before, yeah. I was sitting there going like, but I have my notes. I can show you the time on my...
No, I believe you. That's just insanely good. I was sitting there like, I don't think I can argue with this because I now sort of believe it. I might rewatch Wolverine Origin and be like,
Yeah, it might.
holy
But
shit.
I mean, it goes also with how they edit the movie together. At one point, Logan is missing his jacket, and so he kind of appears in a place, just like how Deadpool can disappear and reappear, just like Bradley and Bolt can do the same thing. And so he's changing clothes at places, and so you kind of can pick it apart and be like, maybe this was the whole thing all along. I doubt it. I think it's a terribly made movie, but you could probably... It's like that chair disappearing in the back of Jack Nicholson in The Shining, where you're like, oh, he probably planned that. Nah, maybe not. We don't know.
Yeah.
He's dead now. We don't know. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in the movie that kind of goes with that, and I thought it was really, really fun to just sit there and be like, all right, how do we make this one smart?
Yeah. Well, you've done it well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more than admirable job. Jesus Christ. But you also brought up, in passing, by accident, 2 new drinking game rules.
Yay!
So obviously, take a drink, or you could make this a shot. I mean, everybody could kill themselves if they really wanted. So it's power's in your hand. But take a drink anytime they bend backwards to tie their contrived plot into X-Men 1 and 2. Which was brought up when we were talking about the memories and their inability to heal.
Yep.
Is just the most convenient of like, well, that will explain why you can't remember because he got shot in a very like you can't just heal memories.
He got shot right in the memory.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because when you regrow things and they function exactly as they did before, that's not a form of memory at all. But then there's a I did it for my son. That's contrived from Stryker.
Yep.
Trying to tie that in. Scott meeting Xavier is contrived as balls.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. This is the day we met, and like it's like he singles him out as the leader. Like
Yeah.
Scott, lead these people. It's me, Scott. And like, who the fuck are you, magic voice? Just trust me.
Yeah.
A crazy
does he
voice in my
bother?
head is telling us.
Why
to
does he
leave.
bother mind speaking to him when all those other kids are just going to be standing there being
Well,
like, this is terrifying. There's a scary
Yeah,
guy
they
who
could
just
have-
turned
they
up.
have 2 separate scenes where Emma Not Frost says, "Are you sure we should be following the voice in your head?" And he's like, "Yeah,
But
sure."
see, that's another thing that points to maybe all the personalities that Wolverine has. Are we supposed to be following everything? The fact that Wolverine is following all these voices in his head, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe we should have just stayed
shut
in
our
bed.
eyes. We should shut our eyes and listen to old men in our heads.
There you go.
The young man at that time, CGI young man, and of course, convenient Sabretooth goodbye. Luckily, they wrapped up all their unfinished words to each other before. Like, we'll go our separate ways. Together, we're done, and we're never going to talk again. And then he loses his memory so conveniently. The next time they see each other, he's a snarling weirdo with nothing to say.
Yeah.
We settled this, didn't we?
Yes. I've never seen this man before in my life. So, the other one is every time, take a drink every time the film fails to make something look cool.
Yeah.
Which ties into the CGI clause and such that Jason was saying, which includes, the clause, of course,
Yep.
first off, especially the bathroom scene, which is one of the sloppiest pieces of shit I've ever put to like big budget cinema.
Have they ever said why? Because in the X-Men 1, 2, and 3, didn't they use prosthetic claws?
It was
Half-
a mix.
half and half.
Like this one, it was a
okay.
mix. But the thing this time around is that they had to dish out the production for CGI to, I think they said it was either 7 or 17 different production companies. Just whoever got wrapped up with the claws that day just had a bad go at it.
Yeah,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
to be fair, a lot of these these scenes were filmed just additionally and shit like that. And
Yeah.
you can understand why this was the last thing to be shot, and then they were just like, throw some CGI on it, make it a scene.
Do you, on your list of the drinking game, do you have any they run and charge at each other?
I think I do. If you're talking about Lugan and Sabretooth especially running and
they
charging
always run
on
and
each
charge.
other.
That's the way they start a fight. I understand that it looks better than just walking up and slapping someone, but at the same time, there has to be a different way where you can, start an action scene.
Yeah.
It's like
I think that's a more fleshed out way of filling in my drink every time Lugan and Victor fight, because then you only get 3 drinks.
Okay.
So if you want to drink every time someone charges at someone, and I mean Wolverine, like he charges at helicopters, he charges at the Bob from above, he charges at Gambit. There's charges all over the place.
The yelling?
That's yelling's on here somewhere. I'll have to figure it out. It might be just one to itself. He yells every time he yells, or anyone yells. Take a drink. Other times that things that don't look cool, that they should have, include chopping down that ladder in the alleyway.
That's brilliant.
Oh my god!
It's one of the funniest looking. Like it looks like Wallace and Gromit, like proper like Aardman animation. It's fucking hilarious. Like stop motion. It's terrible. It's really out of place. Gambit's 2 leaps. He has 2 crazy leaps.
The helicopter, where he does the little helicopter stick spin, amazing.
From a building that he climbs up off
screen.
Climbs up
With
to
the
the top of a building.
yeah, that was
and
weird.
leaps
What the
over.
hell is that?
Cut to last we seen him, he was lying on the ground in the alleyway, and he was just like, you know what? I'm going to climb that ladder over there, and I'm going to do a running jump, all just to get right back to where the fuck I was in the first place. And then the other one, it's like ending in the beautiful "Did you miss me?" line.
Just jumps out of nowhere.
He saves Lugan from the falling nuclear plant.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. We forgot we did write this character in.
Comes straight from Logan's imagination.
He had a moral. Yeah, it's beautiful. There's also the lightning. There was the scene when Logan leaves the Vietnam group for being morally dubious. They're all grouped together in a team shot, and there's just like a cha-cha. Yeah, exactly. A flash of light, like whoa. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to feel from that.
The
Like,
music doesn't work with it
threatening?
either.
Is it sad? Like the guys look pretty beat up that he left. They actually look pretty put out. So I don't know. Like, are they going to get revenge, or are they just like this is the end for them?
I have a theory. I think that there was an on-set photographer that day, and he forgot to turn off his flash.
They're just like, yeah, put up under.
I was like, oh shit, we can't shoot that again. We have everyone here.
Was
I
it
love that
just
phrase.
me that noticed? I think it's when the agent guy is running away at one point or chasing.
X or
Yeah.
Zero.
He
Zero,
does
zero.
like
That's it.
a backflip over a fence, but it just doesn't make
Yes.
sense because the physics of a backflip are that you go backwards, but he's jumping.
Yeah, it jumps
Forwards.
forward,
Yeah,
flips backwards.
Yeah, is it? That
yeah.
looked really weird.
That's-
It didn't. It really took me out of the movie for a second. I was like, how did Maverick do that?
Yeah,
Or Agent Zero, they call him. That's
yeah.
Maverick was.
The,
But I was.
yeah, they just for the one Asian actor in the film, they give him like kung fu physics. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are moments like that constantly throughout, but I didn't bother writing them down. Like, just like subtly racist shit. But maybe a little drab. Well, the other things that aren't cool, Sabretooth as a whole is not cool.
Oh, I liked
see?
Liev Schreiber in that one, man.
Oh, I know. I think he's a good actor. I think he did a good job.
Oh, okay.
Of what the fuck he was given, but I mean, they tried to make him threatening, or every time he's like, "Here are my claws."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
gonna
like,
get you."
Yeah, the
He
claws
just
are.
kind of. It looked like a tired pedo. Like, cat's
It's like
out.
Saruman on top of the fucking crystal ball. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But didn't you think that that was the funny thing about Sabretooth in the opening sequence, which should have been the movie. Let's face it, the wars, that should have been the entire movie. But Schreiber goes from gutting people to a rapist by the end, and I was like, that's a pretty steep fucking... how are you like, it's like, well, what's the most cliched thing we could find from every war? Oh, the rape in Vietnam. That's the one we're going to go for. And you're like, I don't know, why would he? That doesn't seem like, he doesn't seem interested in women other than that. It's just a
Yeah.
It's
if
weird.
anything, he's got a super homoerotic relationship with his half brother, and that's about the height of it.
his alter
so
ego.
I don't know what. Oh yeah, that's it. He has a love affair with himself.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is.
And also like. That's one of those telling, like, that was in the R-rated version, and then
Yeah.
they kept it in the 12A version. It's really fucking
You
bizarre.
mean Wolverine and Sabretooth having sex?
No, they cut that. But, yeah, the Vietnam rape was what the fuck.
Yeah.
Other uncool things, the CGI logs was one thing that Jason brought up as well. One of the funniest, like, for the bump.
And the scene just before
Cut
that.
CGI over.
Did you notice, like,
Yes.
there was a truck that literally drives by, hits Wolverine, and doesn't bother stopping. The truck just keeps going. You know, anybody who hits anything on the road is going to get out and stop. You know, it would have been an innocent bystander. He could have gotten killed or something like that, but no, it's like, beep, beep, brr,
Yeah.
well, fuck it, there goes that deer. Who gives a shit?
That's the Canadian
Why the
outback
deer
for
was
you.
wearing a
There's
wife
totally
beater.
different laws of the land. And of course, the only other thing that should have been somewhat cool and wasn't was of course Deadpool. He is one of the least cool things ever put to cinema.
Yeah.
Like, with Tryhard, he has all the powers. He has all the powers, and therefore it makes him extra cool. It's like they never learned anything from the terrible '90s Marvel already had went through in the comics about try hard, make everything cool, make Batman, Wolverine, etc., etc., and go like, maybe this isn't cool. Maybe this is desperate and sad.
See, I actually, when I first watched it, I didn't really know who Deadpool was, so I didn't quite pick up on.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at the time
Yeah.
either.
Bothered
But
me.
watching it again, I quite liked that beginning sort of bit where you had the team working together, and I kind of wish that there'd been a bit more of that team dynamic instead of just immediately disbanding.
Yeah,
Like it should have been the film, for example.
yeah.
I mean,
I
there's
mean, with
terrible.
the Deadpool thing, that first bit with Deadpool was like the moment that loads of people were like, "Oh shit, Ryan Reynolds is a good Deadpool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's because that's the issue, or at least that's the issue I have, and I seem to remember it being the main issue that a lot of people had with the Deadpool in it. Is it's not the beginning bit of Deadpool. That's fine. It's a bit over the top with the like blocking every bullet with his sword and whatever. But fuck it, it's an action film. I live with it. But that it's the end scene where you're like, you've taken this character that a lot of Marvel fans genuinely love, and you've done the one thing to him that no one should ever do to Deadpool,
shut
which
him
is
up,
sew
yeah.
up his fucking mouth. I get that it's the joke in the film, but like, it's just the wrong thing to do to Deadpool.
But that's the funny thing is that there's exposition when it comes to that as well, where I feel like Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool, everyone who knew Deadpool was like you said, it's fantastic, he's talking. However, we know him as the merc with a mouth. And
Yeah.
they keep saying that Wade talks a lot, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
No,
And then
When he's
you're
allowed
like,
to.
you know, oh, that fucking mouth of yours is going to get you in trouble. And you're like, he said 3 lines, dude.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It doesn't make any sense. And when he's sharpening his sword, you know, and I was like, it's just one of those things where you're like, it doesn't seem all right. And did you guys, what happened to Ryan Reynolds' voice? It was low in this movie, but when you watch the Deadpools now,
What do you mean? He has to like whisper each of his lines. Like, this is what I mean when I'm playing Deadpool. This is my voice.
yeah, but then when you watch the new Deadpool movies, he's all like, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh," you know, his voice
Yeah.
goes up like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened. Is he?
Like a character.
Yeah, exactly. That could be it. But anyway, it was really, really funny. I was like, he's not saying anything. Why are you guys keep repeating? Like, do you ever shut up? And it was like, he's quiet the minute right after.
Yeah.
He was quiet just before. You know?
The,
just-
I found. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say he's being bullied. Everyone's bullying Deadpool. That's the real story of this. Is Wade Wilson in this film is actually just fine. Everyone should like him, and all his mates are like, "No, shut up, Wade. You talk too much."
So
and he's
cruel.
like, "I'm not saying anything."
Deadpool Origins. This is terrible. Where's his film? Where's his justice? in that period of time where things were terrible. What did I have? I found the drinks every time Logan yells. You could expand that to every time somebody yells, because lots of people yell. Also, one of the things that came to mind there: drink every time will.i.am delivers an amazing quote. Since we're talking about the gang. Because will.i.am, who is potentially the worst of the bunch in the film,
Yep.
is my probably my favorite part. And it's because he is the bar. He is like you can't go lower than this. But they also conveniently give him all the best lines, and by that I mean all the ones that like are just the worst, and then he delivers them terribly.
Yeah,
and that skyrockets them into like this thing. Like I still quote a bunch of them, and I picked up a few more this time around. So I have 4, but you can drink every time one of these comes up. There's that's cool. Which is great. It's like the least cool thing. And oh god, what was it? Don't dogs kill cats. It's like, do they?
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, wait, what? Like they chase them? Yeah.
Yeah. They're like there's animosity. They're different animals.
Yeah.
It's like, do dogs kill cats? Like, not regularly.
No, not at all. This guy's been watching too many cartoons.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. My favorite of all time, of the entire film, in fact, is you shouldn't have done that because now I'm gonna kill you.
And he's standing next to him and he's barely moving. He's just got his, and you're like, oh my god!
Dukes up.
It's when you realize that Will.i.am has never been in a fighting stance ever before in his life. You could tell from there that he's never thrown a punch ever. He's just kind of standing there. Like almost like his thumbs would be on the inside of his fists, where you're like, "Nyeh."
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, oh god, that means I could take down Will.i.am in a fight. That would be awesome.
It makes me laugh every time I think about that quote all the time. Shouldn't have done that. Because now I'm gonna kill you. Now I'm gonna kill you.
The backbone.
It's like one of the worst. Like it's like so poorly delivered. It's like, oh yeah, he's a real fighter. And this is the last one I realized that I had never heard before was when they're all together at the very start of the film, and he teleports next to the guy who has the adamantium, and he says, "I wouldn't do that if I was you, brother." Like, ooh, that's good writing. They're black.
Oh god, yeah. Do you have any? Did you have any shots for the leftover shots from Jurassic Park?
No.
Okay.
What's that?
That helicopter sequence when they're heading over towards the Weapon X facility at Alkali Lake. You could.
Oh yeah, when they like zoom in that waterfall.
That stuff, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this looks like it was shot like a. I was like, I'm gonna throw in a Jurassic Park reference in there, and I was like, all right, that's kind of.
That's what I thought too. I didn't write it down, but I was thinking like, what are they going for? Is this like establishing, or are they?
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
Like,
I was like,
oh,
is this supposed to be like?
And man, do I love Jurassic Park.
Exactly. I was expecting the song to kick in, but I mean, you just see the helicopter, and you're like, okay, there's no music. Is this an act transition? What's going on? What are we supposed to get from this? I was like, okay, we're just watching a helicopter. Okay, fine. Let's see where it fits in.
Incredible. So what do you guys think of Logan himself in the film? Like, how do he strike you? Hugh Jackman's best performance, his worst performance.
I think to be honest, this sheds a lot of light on Logan as well, the film.
In that the moment they took all the reins from Hugh Jackman and give it to like credible like writers and directors, that it suddenly started to open up a little bit.
Yes, that, but also the character arc is pretty much the same. Logan has to go into a facility to free a bunch of kids in order for them to leave. He gets shot at the end, he dies somewhat, and then he resurrects. And I was like, that's kind of weird. We're going through the same fucking beats again, with what we were talking about on our review of Logan, where we were like, we've seen this film before with this guy, and so I thought it was kind of a strange one to go back and revisit, because I was like, I think I've seen this movie before. Oh, right. It came out in 2017. Again,
I remember the Drunken Haze from 2010. It was great. I did watch this film.
Exactly.
I remember now.
It's Logan's savior again, you know what I mean? He just basically the liberator of mutants. He's the guy who goes in and solves everything. I don't know.
And it's funny as well when they got that R rating, the one thing they stripped from this film, that they give it to Logan as well. And it did make the difference. Like, Logan could have been a okay X-Men Origins version without the super graphic violence, but that added entertainment that you get from like visceral and creative ways to tackle fight scenes really adds an additional layer to the film that makes it super enjoyable compared to, say, Wolverine Origins, where it's a bunch of people slapping and tossing each other around and nobody gets hurt.
I mean,
for almost
you do see
90% of the fights
in Origins. You do see him like pull his claws out of bodies, and they're just completely clean. So they have the stabbing, they just don't really emphasize the effectiveness of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It just feels like, I've been like, it's like a pin in my chest.
Yeah.
Like that's gonna sting for hours.
Do you think that the boy at the beginning of X-Men Origins Wolverine grows up to be the same guy who's sick in Logan? That's kind of funny because
oh my god,
you bookend all that. He starts sick and ends sick.
You brought up one of my favorite drinking game rules by mere coincidence. Every time an actor was recast in another superhero film, and he's one of them. I've got the whole list, a wide list. Young Logan, I believe, turned out to be new Nightcrawler in Apocalypse.
Okay. Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah. So other people, Ryan Reynolds, obviously Deadpool. Danny Houston became the whatever you call the film from Wonder Woman. Lee Schreiber is apparently cast to be a voice in the upcoming animated Spider-Man film coming out at Christmas.
There you
go. So there you go. He's still around. Scott Adkins, who was the stunt actor for Deadpool, was something that I for some reason didn't write down. But look that up. Whoa. When he comes on screen, take a drink. Daniel Henney. I can't remember who this guy is. But he of course he's Agent Zero. It was also the voice of the bigger brother in Big Hero 6, which is a Marvel adapted property via Disney Animation. And Tim Pocock, who is the young Cyclops, is about to star in the new upcoming Marvel series Runaways. So there you go. Then you could drink all those weird, convenient recasting of people who didn't get a fair shake when Origins crashed and burned on release.
At least so many of them are getting a second chance.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's all about new lives, new lives.
Failing
upwards. They've all regenerated.
I have two things left, and then after that, I'm gonna close out my whatever I had. I have two things that I really liked about the movie. One of them is that Stryker literally writes "decapitate" in the computer. I thought that was awesome. Decapitate, and I was like, I've never seen decapitate spelled on screen for me so well. I was like, that's pretty cool. And it's exactly what happens to Deadpool.
I did not notice that.
Yeah,
he gets decapitated. And my favorite line in the whole movie, there's one line that sticks out for me, and it's, "I'm Canadian." Because that hit home. If Wolverine is one of those guys that represents Canada, well, that's awesome. We're proud of X-Men Origins up here.
You better be. Filmed in Australia. I've got a couple more drinking game things, but if anyone wants to stop me from talking for a little while,
man,
I contribute some of their own thoughts. Alright, so you can take a drink anytime an offhand reference to the comics is shoehorned in, regardless of context or tone or sense. So, say Logan's motto, I'm the best at what I do, what I do is not very nice, is like they're awful to listen to when said aloud.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's just one of the cringiest things I've ever seen in a film. There's quote unquote the pool.
Yeah.
Which Stryker references, like, we needed powers for the pool. Like, oh, that's desperate. Gambit as a whole is just like, there's this guy, his name, where he gets his name is fucking stupid. It's like, oh, he gets it because in the prison they used to run a poker night and he would win all the money, and that's why they called him Gambit. Like, well, that's good. And then there's Blob, who does the bub thing again.
Yeah.
The Wolverine's name in itself is one of the most contrived and bizarre fucking origin things that without context, and it's just one of the most embarrassing stories I've ever heard reiterated. Like about the fucking there was a trickster and you got tricked and you lost your girlfriend because of it.
Yeah.
That person was the Wolverine.
Yep.
My favorite thing is when he brings it up again. He doesn't actually change who he is in it, but he says like, "I'm just the poor bastard who got tricked." But in the story, he related to the poor bastard who got tricked in the first place. The poor bastard who got tricked was the Wolverine,
Yeah.
wasn't it? So like at the end, he's like, "I thought I was your whatever it was," even though he calls himself Wolverine and gets it on his dog tags. He's like, "I thought I was your Moon." But it turns out I'm the Wolverine, even though he like adopted that name like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, that was a funny thing when you mentioned the trickster. I was like, oh, there you go. I can actually make a whole analysis based on fairy tales, and it would fit in with the fact that this guy's creating this world. Oh, so you're the trickster. It's one of those elements that he didn't think about, you know. It's because the trickster figure is like Puck and Shakespeare and whatnot. Is this one thing that throws everything for a loop. And then it has to be mended by the end. And so I was like, oh, look at that. We could actually look at that as you know, if she's the trickster figure and she's found in the forest, then she's some sort of forest nymph. And you can kind of build a whole theory based on that as well. And so I was like, aha, I got another in.
Was it the last, when we did the Godzilla King Kong thing, did you also bring up fairy tales in that episode?
Yeah, it was the hero's journey.
Yeah.
That's right. I was just I had like Vietnam flashbacks right there about everyone in this conversation sitting like, here we go. The trickster that came up, I think.
Yeah.
I remember a wizard. Okay, another drink. Every time Logan contradicts himself in a grand statement or tells people how edgelord his ambivalence to morality is, he just continually updates people about how he's feeling, including the time he said he should have trusted his instincts, then immediately turns around and doesn't trust them and goes back to his manipulative wife. There's his stance on the word. He has this terrible moment with the Kents, where he says,
I call them the Kents too. My notes.
Fuck their names.
I called them Ma and Pa Kent. I did the same thing.
Yeah, they are Ma and Pa Kent.
Yep.
They even give them his jacket.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
Exactly. He hands him a blanket first, just like
Superman.
they handed to Superman.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They tried to make him Superman. Yeah, he's like, in a conversation with them, he's like, decent, huh? You know, like as if he doesn't know the word decent, and it's like, what the fuck, you bitch.
It's funny. I forgot this is the other point I wanted to make. There's an actual dinner the same way as there is in Logan, where the fucking family gets destroyed. It's the same fucking
true.
thing.
Another kindly family takes him in and dies at his behest.
I was actually...
It's a remake.
I was quite sad by that bit, because even though they hadn't been on screen for very long, I was like, oh, I like this couple.
Yeah, they're a beam of light.
Yeah.
That's just because that's like the old-fashioned edgelord comics of the 80s. They would introduce like kindly people and just murder them to make you feel something, you desensitized bastards.
Lee, we have to write that script.
Which
X-Men
one?
Origins, Ma and Pa Kent. And we'll make it for Liam.
Thank you.
You have to find those same actors.
Yeah, they actually like their par was inviting strangers into their house and inventing jackets out of the air. For
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Like,
Giving them motorcycles.
they never had a son. They just like they're like they are the tricksters. New theories. Yeah, shit like saying like the road we're on has no redemption after it. Like, go fuck yourself. It's just shit like that. He always constantly updating people about like this job is a dark one and my life is miserable and it's just not earned at all. And it constantly like, so every time he brings it up, you have to drink because it's the only way you're gonna get through it. It's like we're hitting the road and I don't expect to come back. And when Paul Kent tells him, "Men that go looking for blood, they find it." You know,
It's a great line.
It's just like, Jesus, come on. It would take a day off with the fucking intellectualizing, quote unquote. Yeah, so also take a drink every time Logan and wife Silver Fox make life intolerable for people who are watching it. So just every couple of seconds when they're on screen, take a drink because they're like the worst written couple of all time. You can take a drink every time Logan switches from hard-ass killer to dramatic soppy mess.
Yeah.
Which is like a bipolar thing.
Yeah.
You could tie that into Jason's reading a little bit. that he becomes Sabretooth every now and then back to Wolverine, then back to Sabretooth, and that's usually when Sabretooth is not around, so you can tie that in. Anytime a fight starts to rescue screenwriters from writing any more terrible dialogue, i.e. every single time Logan and Sabretooth fight, and also the time Logan fights that logger guy.
Oh, right,
has
the guy
an
with the hand on
incredible
the shoulder.
Yeah, who has an incredible quote in the, fucking 2 seconds he has on screen. He blurts it out, and it's like, you start something, you better run it. So,
And who does that? Who blocks a
starts
road
up-
just for, like,
Yeah.
you know, on a fucking bridge
Yeah.
either? Like, what kind of asshole is that? You know what I mean?
He's so unreasonably mad when Logan's like, "Could you please move?"
It's
He's just like,
escalates.
"How?"
Flips in the fucking bird.
one to
Yeah.
violence. It's crazy. And he's like, you start something, you better be ready to finish it. And he blurs that together in one line, before he throws the punch. Like, start something, you better be ready to finish it. It's like, is this guy is he trying to make a moral? Who the fuck is this guy? Logger number 6.
It's just Logan
What's
just is
his
so
problem?
polite when he walks up to him. Hey, pal, do you mind just moving your truck?
Yeah.
And the guy just flips goes.
I'll kill you.
That reminded me.
Wait for me to finish conversation. You better start to finish something.
Like another line I absolutely hated is when you have Sabretooth sat in the bar and Wolverine is coming for him and he's like to the barkeep, have you got insurance? It's like, no. It's like, oh, shame. Then all they do is just blow out the door. I was expecting this bar to be completely destroyed by
they
the
really
end.
build it up.
Yeah.
Everybody evacuates, and then they toss him through a window, and then they're fighting outside
Yeah.
instead.
And-
So fucking anticlimactic.
How long did they take to build that set? Because to me, it's
That's
the
what I mean, that's
longest
insane.
bar I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the
Yes.
widest
Yeah.
bar I've ever seen with no fucking tables.
Yeah.
It's just a shot of Wolverine, and you see Sabretooth, and there's just a bar with 2 dudes, a
Yeah.
barman,
Yeah.
and then you're like,
It's like a dance hall.
what the hell? It must be that. That must be the thing. Thank you.
Yeah, repurpose as a bar.
Exactly,
But,
because
yeah,
it used to
really
be a
is,
dance hall. Okay, my
that's-
bad.
You hear that all the time. All the time. That, they build these sets, and then the director just says, I don't want to shoot it inside. And they're but we've had this plan for 2 months. We had to build from scratch. And we had to renovate a barn into a bar. And they're like, no, but outside you get the rain. It's more dramatic. It's a real action film that way. And it's like, oh, sweet Jesus Christ. All right, a couple more rules.
You know why they have it that
drink every
extended long thing then? Though? So they can run and charge at each other.
Of course.
It's the only
Take a
reason
drink.
it's that long. Because if
That's so
Wolverine
true.
goes to sit down, then it's an arm wrestling competition, and it's not fun anymore.
Jesus Christ. Every time Stryker seems ready to suck Wolverine's dick to get him to do anything, take a drink. There's so
do
many
the
scenes
swallowing.
where he's just please. I'll do it consider it, Logan. Your wife. What would she think? Anything, please. Let me inject you.
I have some of those things too. I can give you the tools to defeat him.
Exactly.
We'll make you indestructible, but first we have to destroy you.
That's right. He has one of my favorite. He has one of my favorite weird out of context lines as well, which is "Come on, old friend, come back."
That was, yeah, it's not a friend at all.
What the fuck?
Old friend.
Come on, and that's in his private moment. That's actual character in depth. He actually believes Logan's his friend. It's insane. What were they writing this for? Drink anytime Logan's contrived, barely explained super hearing is used or hinted at. It's comes up about 3 times, and about 1 time they say, "I think he heard you," but every
Underwater
other
and
time
all
it's
the
just
rest.
every other time it's just sort of understood that he can just hear you when you're around. He can hear Sabretooth killing his wife and shit
Yeah.
like that. What the fuck? Is this a par? It's never been established.
No, he can sniff.
Maybe
that's
it
the
was.
thing.
Maybe it was in one of
Wolverine
the
can
other.
smell.
Yeah, I
Never
remember
heard the
that.
hearing thing.
I never remember the hearing par. But yeah, it just seemed really weird to me because they use it 3 times.
Let's
So,
change
they
orifices.
really, yeah, they really played up the ear par.
What can I quickly ask? Maybe I just blanked it out when we rewatched this. But what was their plan with Wolverine when they covering him in adamantium? Did they have? Because I don't.
It was twofold.
Yep.
One, they needed to get his DNA to make the Deadpool.
Yep, which you don't need to
Although
cover him in metal.
They have
to
a
get.
line later. Yeah, they have a line later saying that all we need is Logan. So it suggests that they didn't get his DNA when they had him sitting in their fucking lab.
Yep.
So I don't know what the fuck that they like improvise that plan later when it's least convenient. The other plan,
I think.
I think they just expected him to die.
Yeah, there was that. They conned him in by saying, "We're going to give you the tools necessary for you to beat Victor,
Yeah.
and in exchange, we get your DNA." And that's probably what they were going to do. But like Lee says, they was expecting him to die.
But I guess my question then is, if you're expecting someone to die, maybe come up with a better way of doing it than... Like, the process of them killing him is effectively, we're going to turn him into a super weapon, and hopefully it will go just that little bit further and he'll die. And then, the obvious thing happens where, no, he just becomes a super weapon. Surely you just drown him in adamantium and be like, cool,
isn't that
good.
the come on old friend right after that too? It's like, you're like, well, if you're expecting him to die, why are you encouraging him to live? Doesn't make any sense.
And the whole way up to it, they're like, come on, pull through. And it's like, you need to focus on things that are really important for you to live in this. And the whole time he's like got a clenched fist, like he has to make it. But I don't understand. Yeah, you're right, Ellie. It doesn't really. It's not really. It feels like they had a plot there for a little bit and then they lost it. My last drinking rule is every time Stryker's head doctor / nurse butts in with something negative. Yeah, so that was the last rule. That's the drinking game.
I think you've made a decent drinking game there that would definitely get you too drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would be dead. You kind of have to tap out once you've gone to like your certain respectable limit and go, yeah, you know what? From here on, I'm just gonna raise my glass in like a pity gesture. But I recommend absolutely 0% of people actually play the game, because it's just nitpicks summarized into passages.
You should make a grid of it, man. Let's Photoshop this whole thing together and make it like a real fun thing. And I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to add this really terrible pun. It would be the X-Men or a Gins. Gins in all capital letter, where you have to exclusively drink gin with this game.
Oh god, it's going to be lethal.
I can't even play my own fucking drinking game.
We did receive some correspondence about this, but
my god,
Cat kind of live tweeted it while I was watching it last night.
Yeah, it was great. I saw.
Yeah, some choice highlights from it. Ha ha ha! The opening sequence is so bad. I feel bad for everyone involved. Followed by, why is there a rat on Liev Schreiber's shoulder though? Which, I mean,
because he's a rat, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that ties into my merciful
creepy and unsettling.
Yeah.
That's
Hugh Jackman is shirtless in the Canadian Rockies, except lol, no, it's awful green screen, but damn, them abs are real. Which I quite like. Smells like government. What great dialogue.
Oh my god, that's right. That. Smells like government.
Yeah. And one thing that we haven't actually discussed, I'm surprised about, that Wolverine butt.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
The Wolverine butt.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we got to see it a couple of times in the previous X-Men films as well. I mean, he's been naked before, right? Or am I just thinking?
No, we've seen him come out of the tank, and I think we got a back shot then.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right, and we got to see it again in Apocalypse.
And then
we've
Kat tweeted another one that I love, where she quoted the film where she went, "Hey fat Fred, great save, Logan."
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
I mean, that's what I don't understand. What don't people have to enjoy about this film? Every single line is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I found if you want an explanation for the rat, and this just adds to the fact that I could dip into fairy tales. In folklore and popular culture, this is by the extremely well-researched Wikipedia page. Historically, the Rat King was viewed as a bad omen, and most likely due to rats being considered carriers of disease such as the plague. The fact that Sabretooth is the one that's taking out all of the other mutants makes him kind of a plague in the film. Therefore, the rat on the shoulder would be kind of foreshadowing the fact that he's the killer.
Perfect.
Fair enough.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
We also
Not
had a
really.
tweet
Not in this movie.
a tweet from Marcus at the Marco guy, just saying this will be interesting, which was in response to Jason tweeting about us talking about this.
I hope so, Marcus.
Yeah.
Hope this is what you
This is
needed.
what you signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get through like probably a solid 2 hours of us just talking about my arse hair and shit like that first. But hopefully, you powered through and you got to what you wanted.
I'm sure Ellie could probably trim that down a little bit, pun intended.
No.
No.
So, are we going to rate X-Men Origins Wolverine out of 5?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's ratings
absolutely.
time.
Yeah?
Shall I go first?
Go on, Eddie. You seem eager.
Well, it was going to be like a 2, but I've been slightly swayed by Jason's reading of it, and I'm going to have to rewatch it, and I think it's going to go up a bit, but I think it might be a 2.5.
Woo!
Just completely average.
Wow, Jason, you have the power to change minds. How do you feel about that superpower you supposedly didn't have?
This is all a delusion. I'm going to wake up in bed having stabbed my girlfriend accidentally.
This becomes admissible in court once that actually.
It's not if, it's once. I love it.
I know what I said.
I'm going to have to echo Ellie's rating, and I'm still 2.5. Like, it's not so terrible that I actively hate it. It's just about tolerable enough.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, from a reasonable standpoint and a reasonable frame of mind, that's reasonable.
Yeah, I try.
What did I give X-Men Apocalypse? You know what? I think
It was an honorable mention in your.
Yeah. I think
your
I
top
think it
10
gave it
of
like
the
a
year.
4.5 on 5, just because of the sheer camp of this movie. So yeah, I'd go with a 4.5 on 5 because it sets out to do something completely different, but I still have a fun time picking it apart. So this, to me, in terms of entertainment value, 4.5 on 5. In terms of like good movies, this is 11 on 5. This is fantastic. I don't rate things off. Is that how that works?
Everything goes up to 11. I agree. I would also rate it 4.5. I concede a 0.5 because it's just that there are some moments that are boring. Just some, Most of the time you're questioning the screen and you're going, what the fuck is happening? How did they get here? What is this? And that offers value, that offers laughs. But there's a couple of times where you know where you are and you're just like the actual story parts, like when Wolverine's in the tank, and other than the fact that Stryker is whispering hilarious sweet nothings to him, and also for the fact that one of the best sequences in the world is interrupted by one of the even better sequences in the world, which is one of my dog tags, Wolverine, and then there's like this fucking cutaway to like a stamping montage, and then like 5 minutes later, apparently they're that easy to make that he has it on his neck that same minute. It's like, it's super entertaining even in its most boring scenes. That's even when they're sitting in an office, will.i.am and Logan chatting with each other, and they're just catching each other up in the plot. will.i.am's acting is just so terrible that it's like, wow, this is unbelievably good watch. But there are, its core conception is a little dull, and I find that when I wasn't drunk, watching it this time, it was a bit of a slog to get through. I mean, maybe because I knew it too well.
Ultimately, does this film provide anything?
Yeah, laughs.
Well, no, but I mean, like if you're watching it as part of the X-Men franchise, because
no, we've covered everything before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everything that happens is just redundant by the end.
You better
right?
not be bringing Han Solo up.
Wouldn't dream of it.
Your little shitty grin.
I think it's.
I wish I thought of that.
I think it's great to see an example of something like the two different disparate versions of Logan's story, like Logan and X-Men Origins, both being the exact same story.
Yeah.
And one being like agreeably critically acclaimed, pretty good even if you didn't love it. And the other being this like disaster.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of like a film student's dream, because then you can look at exact parallels between the two and realize what one person did right and what person did wrong.
Yeah.
and therefore the value is that we get this deepest, darkest timeline version of Logan that came out actually before Logan, where they got to learn from their mistakes. That is filled to the brim with just like don'ts, start to finish. Yeah. And they took that concept and they spun it, and they did it really well. They did it to the best it could be, and it was still like a 7. But I mean, it was good.
Yeah,
Just look at
it just goes to show that all you need is swearing and blood.
Yeah, because I mean,
then you get an Oscar.
I just realized
a nomination.
I just realized that Logan versus Sabretooth in X-Men Origins Wolverine is exactly Logan versus X-24.
Yeah, Logan. That's right.
I was like, oh look, one's dressed in black. He must be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think you guys have managed to convince me. I understand, like, as opposed to arguing about your reviews, I think what you've said makes sense for the ratings you've given this film. So, I'm happy with this discussion.
Yes, we've done it. We've culminated our guest appearances so far.
Yep, exactly.
Into something where like both we made sense and you see that we can make sense. That's
exactly.
Beautiful.
So where can the people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find our podcast at Atlantic SC. Lee's the one that's controlling the Twitter now. Mine is Jason B. Michael.
I haven't written it in months.
Yeah. And
You've got a new YouTube page as well. I saw that was quite recent.
Right, yeah. I let Lee talk about that because it's not a reflex of mine to do that, and I feel so bad because he put so much really awesome work into it. It took him like 6 months to make, and I don't pimp it enough.
Well, I mean, this is something that the nerds should know pretty well anyway, because they have their own YouTube page, which I follow and subscribe to, and should recommend to the lovely listeners to also subscribe there for them.
Thanks.
There. And that's not a shameless pandering plug, but yeah, you guys use update like pretty regularly, and it's still taking you're still quite in the early episodes, and it's taking forever, and that's horrifying to watch. I was like, I love what they're doing though, and I feel that there's a reason, even though they're not getting like the views that they desire.
Yep.
And that I feel I should emulate that. And to the exact same results, I have made a YouTube page with lovely little visualized episodes that you can listen to there. I mean, nobody's gonna do it, but it was for me.
Yeah.
So, if you want, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go onto YouTube and look up Atlantic Screen Connection, search it in, and it'll come up almost assuredly.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I'm uploading our backlog. It's entirely for me. Ellie hates the fact that I'm doing it, but it makes me happy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just feel like I use YouTube,
Yeah.
and I would feel disingenuous to ignore it since it fills most of my entertainment day to day. So I mean, that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the show's on. The podcast itself, we talk more like what Jason did just there with his crazy crackpot theories. We do that every episode, more or less, and to usually similar degree of like winging it and hoping for the best. So if you are interested in shit like that, just weird takes on films, that's why you should watch the show or listen to the show. It's on SoundCloud, iTunes, anywhere. And you can follow me at Lee Paul Brady. I talk a lot recently about screenwriting shit that I'm doing, as well as whatever other shit comes to mind. And Jason also has a Twitter.
And I already mentioned it, so that means you don't listen to me, you fuck.
I thought you just said the website was.
Actually, at Jason B. Michael. I'll be posting a bunch of stuff there
Sweet.
Throughout the summer. So that's probably the better
Everyone-
place, and it's a little bit more positive too than actually following me on Twitter, where I'm consistently defending Star Wars from bitch-ass trolls that won't shut the fuck up about their childhoods being ruined. So, anyway.
Everyone should go follow both of you on all those social platforms.
Yeah, and listen to
Liam,
their
what
podcast.
we're doing next week, because I'm aware that Jason has not got much time, so let's do this quick. We're doing God of War next week.
Yep.
People can tweet us at Nerd on Nerd. You can go to facebook.com/Nerd on Nerd Pod. You can email us at nerdonnerdpod@gmail.com. Give us a rating on iTunes. Go subscribe to these guys.
Go subscribe to our
Boom.
YouTube.
Subscribe to our YouTube. Subscribe to their YouTube. Sorted. Look at that.
Any final
Perfect.
thoughts?
That's incredible.
Anyone got any final thoughts?
I love you guys. It's always fun. We
We
do
love
this
you
more
too.
There's so
Yes,
much
we
love.
should.
We
Absolutely.
should.
This is such
Yeah.
a good time.
Yeah, we'll let you guys pick the film next time for Culture's Fun.
Oh, that seems
Oh,
fair.
that
That seems
could be
fair. It's about
interesting.
time.
And don't take
I think-
anything horror,
I
though,
mean-
because I don't want to shit the bed, man.
What about Deathbed? The bed that eats people.
Come on,
you know,
man.
I've been longing to see that one.
No.
All right.
Alright.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.